There are places in the world that defy explanation. Ancient structures so massive they should have been impossible to move. Artifacts that shouldn't exist, at least not with the tools we believe those people had. And entire civilizations that once thrived, only to vanish without leaving a trace. These aren't myths or legends, they are real. They are documented by archaeologists, studied by historians, and yet they remain unsolved puzzles. Who built them? How were they made? And maybe most unsettling of all, what else is still out there, waiting to be uncovered? From colossal stone blocks no modern crane could lift, to whole cities buried beneath the sea, tonight we're wandering through some of the strangest and most mysterious corners of the ancient world. Before we begin, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Maybe settle back against your pillow, let your shoulders relax, and slow your breathing just a little. If you enjoy these late-night history wanderings, consider subscribing to join me for more. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see this little community scattered across the globe, awake together in these quiet hours. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a small fan just for that steady hum in the background. Let the day drift further away now. Let's begin. Close your eyes now and imagine you are standing in the warm air of the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. The horizon is lined with mountains, their ridges softened by distance, and the air carries the faint scent of dust and pine. There, rising out of the earth, is one of the most baffling archaeological sites in the entire world, Baalbek. At first glance, it looks like a ruin, like any other relic of the Roman Empire. Columns broken and scattered, fragments of temples that once stood tall. And yet, as you wander closer, you notice something different. Something that doesn't fit neatly into the picture of Roman architecture. Beneath the temple, at the very base of the platform, sit stones so massive, so utterly colossal, that even our most advanced modern cranes would struggle to shift them. These are the trilithon blocks, 3 stones lined side by side in a row. Each one is estimated to weigh over 800 tons. Imagine that for a moment, 800 tons of solid limestone, not cut into neat rectangular bricks the way modern construction prefers, but enormous megalithic slabs. Each stone is longer than a bus, taller than a person, and wide enough that you could stand a car on top without it overhanging the edges. Now picture what it would mean to move them. Even today, we would need specialized equipment, heavy-duty cranes, and weeks of planning. And yet these stones were carved, transported, and placed here thousands of years ago, long before diesel engines, long before hydraulics, long before steel cables or reinforced concrete, long before the idea of a crane as we know it ever existed. The Romans, of course, built their great temples here. They dedicated this place to Jupiter, the king of their gods. And in the ruins you can still see towering columns that once supported the largest temple in the entire Roman world. But as impressive as the Romans were, and they were master builders, the foundations upon which their temple stands are even older, far older. That's where the trilithon rests, silent and unyielding, almost as if daring time itself to try and move it. Archaeologists and historians debate endlessly about this. Some say perhaps the stones were intended for use but never finished. Others argue that ramps and simple leverage could have been used if enough manpower was available. But when you look at them in person, when you stand in the shadow of those blocks, it's hard not to feel a strange unease. How many thousands of hands would it have taken? How many ropes would have snapped? How many logs crushed beneath their weight? And even if a workforce could drag them, how were they lifted and aligned with such precision, sitting neatly side by side as if placed by a giant's hand? And then there's the question of purpose. Why use stones so enormous when smaller blocks would have sufficed? The Romans didn't need them. In fact, they built the rest of their structures here from much smaller, more manageable pieces of stone. So why are these massive blocks there at all? Who carved them? Who decided they belonged in this place? If you wander a little further out from the main temple ruins, you'll find something even more startling. In a nearby quarry lies a stone so large it's almost unimaginable. Locals call it the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It sits half buried in the earth, left behind, unfinished. It is estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons, more than twice as heavy as the Statue of Liberty. Just imagine the effort that went into even attempting to carve it. And then, for some reason, it was abandoned. Was it too heavy to move? Did the builders realize, too late, that they had pushed the limits of possibility? Or was it simply never meant to be transported at all? The unanswered questions stack one on top of another, like the stones themselves. You can walk among the ruins today, hearing the calls of birds, feeling the crunch of gravel beneath your feet, but the silence of the trilithon lingers. It is not a silence of neglect. It is a silence heavy with meaning, as though the stones themselves are holding on to a secret that has never been told. Historians, of course, search for practical explanations. They point to teams of workers, wooden sledges and earthen ramps that may have stretched for hundreds of meters. They calculate friction, slope and manpower, suggesting that with enough determination, it might have been possible. But what lingers is not the possibility of how. It is the question of why. Why here? Why so large? Why so deliberate? And so Baalbek remains, perched between the known and the unknown. To the Romans it was the city of the sun, a sacred place of worship. To the Phoenicians before them, it may have been a site dedicated to Baal, a god of storms and fertility. And perhaps even further back, before written records, before our stories were etched in clay or ink, it was something else entirely. A site chosen not for religion, not for empire, but for reasons now lost to us. When you stand there in the valley with mountains rising in every direction, it is easy to imagine ancient hands at work. Maybe they were thousands of laborers straining under the sun. Or maybe, as some whisper, it was something else entirely. A knowledge that has since slipped through the cracks of history. A way of working with stone that we no longer understand. And as the evening light falls across the ruins, the trilithon glows faintly gold. Shadows stretch long across the ground, and the air cools as the sun dips behind the hills. The stones remain unmoved just as they have for millennia, waiting, watching, and reminding us that for all we think we know of history, there are chapters missing. Chapters written in stone too heavy to ignore, but too mysterious to fully read. So tonight, as you drift deeper into this journey, let the weight of those stones settle in your mind. Heavy, immovable, yet strangely calming. They remind us of something humbling, that the past is not fully understood, and maybe it never will be. And yet, the mystery doesn't end here. From Baalbek's impossible blocks, our wandering takes us onward to another monument so vast, so precisely built, that it too defies simple explanation. In the sands of Egypt, rising sharply against the desert sky, the Great Pyramids wait for us. From the quiet valley of Lebanon, let your mind drift south, across deserts and rivers, until the land opens into a golden horizon. Here, on the edge of the Sahara, three giants rise from the sands, the pyramids of Giza. You have seen them before, no doubt, on postcards, in schoolbooks, in travel photographs where the sky is always blue and the stones glow under the relentless Egyptian sun. But those pictures only capture the surface. To stand before them, or to imagine them as they truly are, is to face a mystery as old as recorded history itself. The Great Pyramid, the largest of the three, towers more than 400 feet into the sky. It was once even taller, capped with gleaming limestone that caught the sun and turned the pyramid into a shining beacon. It is built from millions of stone blocks, some weighing as much as 70 tons, fitted together so precisely that even a blade of grass could not slip between them. And yet this isn't just about size, it's about something deeper, precision. The Great Pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Its placement is so exact that modern surveyors with lasers and satellites still marvel at its accuracy. Some have called it a map of the stars, frozen in stone. The three pyramids together mirror the layout of Orion's belt, a constellation that guided ancient eyes through the night. It is as if the builders wanted not only to command the desert, but also to tie their creation to the heavens themselves. How did they do it? With what tools? These questions linger unanswered. The traditional image is simple: ramps of mud brick and sand stretching across the desert, thousands of workers hauling stones with ropes, sweat shining in the sun. It is possible. It might even be plausible. And yet when you gaze at the sheer size, the flawless symmetry, the exact geometry, that explanation begins to feel thin, as though it only scratches the surface. Consider the mortar. It binds the stones together, holding them steady against thousands of years of wind and sand. Scientists have tested it, studied its composition, tried to recreate it. And yet even today the precise mixture is not fully understood. In many cases the mortar has proven stronger than the limestone itself. What recipe did those ancient builders know that we do not? And then there is the sheer labor. To place millions of stones with such precision would require a staggering workforce. Ancient texts speak of tens of thousands of workers, organized into teams, fed and housed nearby. Recent discoveries suggest they were not slaves, as once thought, but skilled laborers, proud of their work. Even so, the logistics boggle the mind, cutting the stone from quarries, transporting it across the desert, aligning each block with mathematical perfection. How did they achieve such harmony without steel tools, without wheels, without the machines that we take for granted? Some theories suggest long, spiraling ramps that wound around the growing pyramid, allowing stones to be dragged upward as construction rose. Others imagine straight ramps stretching for miles, built from earth and sand, only to be dismantled once the work was done. Still others whisper about lost technologies, knowledge that might have been forgotten, buried with the sands of time. Stand there in your imagination now at the base of the Great Pyramid. Look up. The angle of the sides is so precise that it still puzzles architects. The scale is so immense that you feel small, a mere flicker of life in the shadow of eternity. And yet, the pyramid is not heavy in its presence. It feels serene, as though it was always meant to be there, resting on the edge of the desert, like a sentinel watching over the Nile. Step closer and run your hand across the weathered stone. You might notice the faint traces of tool marks worn smooth by thousands of years. Each block was cut by human hands, shaped and set into place, yet together they form something almost otherworldly. As night falls, the desert cools and the stars begin to shine. Look upward, and you see how the pyramid points toward the heavens, its sides catching the starlight. The Egyptians believed in eternity. Their lives were brief, but their monuments were built to last forever. The pyramids were tombs, yes, but more than that. They were ladders to the stars, vessels for the soul to ascend. The alignment with Orion may not be coincidence. Perhaps it was a deliberate bridge between the earth and the sky. And so for thousands of years the pyramids have stood, silent and immovable. Empires have risen and fallen around them. Floods have swept across the Nile. Winds have buried and uncovered them. Tourists have climbed their steps. Scholars have measured their angles. Poets have described their majesty. Yet the heart of the mystery remains. how could ordinary tools build something so extraordinary? Did the Egyptians simply master patience and precision to a degree that we struggle to comprehend? Or is there something we are missing? Something buried in the sands alongside forgotten scrolls and broken statues? Even today, the pyramids keep their secrets. Hidden chambers have been discovered, some still sealed after thousands of years. Scans with modern technology reveal gaps, voids, spaces within that may hold treasures or simply the stone walls refuse to tell. They remain closed, keeping their silence, as if guarding truths that we are not yet ready to know. And perhaps that is the point. The pyramids were never meant to be simple. They were meant to endure, to outlast questions, to remind us that not everything can be explained away. That some works of humanity, or perhaps something more, exist on a scale too vast for easy answers. As you imagine the cool desert night settling in, the sand whispering in the wind, you can almost hear the weight of centuries pressing down. The pyramids rise like mountains carved by human ambition, their peaks pointing to the stars, their bases sunk deep into the earth. They are both earthly and cosmic, both practical and impossible, and so we leave them there for now, standing tall on the edge of the desert, shimmering under starlight, eternal guardians of questions that have no final answer. From here, our wandering will carry us across an ocean to another high plateau where stone blocks rest in strange formations. At Tiwanaku and its smaller stranger cousin Pumapunku, we will find stones cut with such precision that even modern machines would struggle to replicate them. From the shifting sands of Egypt, let your imagination drift again, this time across oceans and forests, to a place far from deserts and pyramids. Here, in the wind-swept highlands of Bolivia, the air is thin, sharp, and cool. You are standing 12,000 feet above sea level on the wide plateau of the Altiplano. The mountains surround you like ancient guardians, their peaks capped with snow. In this vast, lonely place lies another puzzle carved in stone. The ruins of Tiwanaku spread out before you, remnants of a city that once thrived near the shores of Lake Titicaca. Here, walls of sandstone and andesite rise in fragments, gateways carved with intricate designs, statues weathered but still proud. Yet the true enigma is not the city itself, but a smaller site just beyond it, Pumapunku. At first glance, it looks like a jumble of blocks scattered across the earth, as if some great building project had been abandoned mid-construction. But step closer, and you begin to notice the details. These are not ordinary stones. They are carved with an astonishing precision. Smooth faces, sharp corners, complex angles. Some are shaped into perfect interlocking H patterns, like pieces of a giant puzzle. Others have grooves cut into them with such regularity that they resemble the work of machines, and yet they were carved more than 1,000 years ago. Run your hand in your imagination along one of those surfaces. The stone feels impossibly smooth, almost polished. Edges remain sharp, even after centuries of wind and rain. Holes drilled into the rock are perfectly round, their depth consistent. To see it in person is to feel a strange dissonance, as though time has folded, and fragments of a modern workshop have been scattered across an ancient landscape. How was this achieved? The stones at Pumapunku are made of andesite, one of the hardest rocks in the world. Modern engineers use diamond-tipped tools to cut it cleanly. Yet here, centuries before industrial machines, someone shaped it with a precision that defies simple explanation. Archaeologists propose that the builders used simple tools, stone hammers, copper chisels, sand abrasion, patience, and skill. And perhaps they did. Human ingenuity can never be underestimated. But even with that in mind, the degree of exactness remains startling. The blocks were designed to interlock, to fit seamlessly without mortar, like pieces of some immense construction set. The joints are so tight that a blade of grass cannot slip between them. And then there is the weight. Some of these blocks are not small. They measure dozens of feet in length and weigh several tons. To move them, to lift them, to place them with such accuracy, here, high on the plateau, far from easy access, adds yet another layer to the mystery. What was Puma Punku? Was it a temple, a ceremonial platform, a palace? Its true purpose has been lost to time. The Tiwanaku civilization which built it left no written records. Their stories, their reasons, their methods, they are all gone. What remains are the stones, silent yet eloquent in their design. Some researchers suggest it was a religious site, a place where rituals were performed under the vast open sky. Others see in it the remnants of a complex society, one with advanced knowledge of engineering and geometry. And still others whisper more speculative theories, that it hints at knowledge passed down from an earlier, forgotten age. An age before history began, when human hands knew techniques that we have since lost. Stand for a moment in the stillness of Puma Punku. Around you the land stretches wide and empty, the wind carrying only the sound of distant birds. The blocks lie scattered, toppled by earthquakes and centuries of erosion. Yet even in ruin they hold their power. You can almost imagine them standing upright once more, forming walls and gateways, each piece locking perfectly into the next, a structure that may have rivaled the precision of anything built today. And then step back into the larger ruins of Tiwanaku itself. There you find the famous Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block of stone, its surface etched with mysterious figures and symbols. Scholars believe it may have been an astronomical calendar aligned with the movements of the sun. Once again, the same theme emerges. An ancient culture with a sophisticated grasp of both engineering and the heavens. Yet Tiwanaku is older than its most visible ruins. Some estimates suggest people lived here as far back as 1500 BCE, and that by 500 CE, the city was a thriving center of culture, trade, and ceremony. At its height, it may have housed tens of thousands of people, and then, as with so many civilizations, it faded. Climate shifts, drought, and perhaps political unrest brought its decline. The people dispersed, the city crumbled, and the once living culture became a ghost, preserved only in stone. Still, the precision of Puma Punku lingers as its greatest enigma. Were these people simply master stoneworkers, pushing their tools and skills to their absolute limits? Or does it suggest something more, a hint that human civilization, at least in this corner of the world, reached a level of engineering long before textbooks are willing to acknowledge? Imagine, for a moment, the builders at work. High in the mountains, men and women quarrying stone, chiseling, sanding, polishing, their hands rough, their movements practiced. Day after day, year after year, shaping blocks that would outlast their names. Perhaps they did it with little more than copper chisels and persistence. Perhaps they had techniques, lost, forgotten, unrecorded, that gave them an edge we no longer understand. Whatever the truth, the result remains. Stones cut so carefully that they seem modern, yet lying in ruins older than any machine. A puzzle not only in their purpose, but in their very existence. As night falls over the plateau, the stars appear in staggering clarity. Here, far from cities, the sky feels close, the constellations sharp against the black. The people of Tiwanaku once stood where you now imagine yourself standing, looking upward, their temples aligned with solstices, their stones echoing the movements of the heavens. They are gone, but their work endures, whispering of knowledge and skill that refuses to vanish completely. And so, we leave Puma Punku not with answers, but with wonder, a scattered collection of stones, silent under the thin Andean air. yet louder in their questions than many libraries of words. They remind us that the past is not always what we think, that human history is not a straight line, but a tapestry woven with forgotten threads. From here, our wandering will carry us far out into the Pacific, to an island so remote that its people carved giants out of stone and moved them across the land. Easter Island and the Moai that stand watch upon its shores will be our next stop. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as its people called it, sits in isolation, surrounded by endless blue waves. There are no mountains here, no forests, only rolling hills, volcanic craters, and the constant whisper of the sea. And scattered across this remote island are giants, the Moai, enormous statues, each one carved from volcanic tuff, standing silently on the landscape. Some rise as tall as 30 feet. Some weigh more than 80 tons. Their faces are elongated, their eyes deep and thoughtful, their noses strong and proud. And most mysteriously, they do not simply rest in one place. They were moved across the island, hundreds of these immense figures, from the quarry where they were carved to ceremonial platforms called ahu, sometimes miles away. How were they moved? For centuries, this question baffled historians and archaeologists alike. Rolling them on logs seemed impossible, given the size and weight of the stones. Carrying them with ropes would have been a Herculean task. And yet evidence shows that these statues did, in fact, travel. Some of the most recent theories suggest a method that is almost poetic in its simplicity. The Moai walked. Imagine this. A team of people, ropes attached to a statue, gently rocking it side to side in a controlled sway, and inch by inch guiding it forward. The statue moves like a living thing, stepping carefully across the landscape. It's slow, meticulous, and requires skill, coordination, and perhaps an understanding of balance and leverage that we often underestimate in ancient cultures. And yet, when the statues reach their ahu, they stand upright, perfectly positioned, facing inland as if watching over the communities that built them. But the story of the Moai is more than their movement. It is also a story of human ambition and consequence. Easter Island was once covered in forests, towering trees that fed and sheltered the people. But over centuries, as the population grew, and the demand for logs to transport the statues increased, the forests dwindled. Deforestation altered the ecosystem, soil eroded, food became scarce. And eventually the society that created these giants began to collapse, struggling against a changing environment of its own making. Yet the Moai were not mere monuments to power or artistry. Their deeper purpose remains a puzzle. Scholars believe they were expressions of ancestor worship, vessels of mana, spiritual energy, that linked the living to the spirits of their forebears. Each statue represents a chief or a revered figure, standing eternal to protect, bless, or oversee. Their placement on the ahu, carefully aligned with sacred sites and astronomical markers, hints at a ritual significance that we can glimpse but never fully grasp. Walk with me in your mind among these silent giants. Imagine the breeze carrying salt from the distant ocean. The sun dips low, casting long shadows that stretch across the grassy plains. The statues seem almost alive in this light, their elongated faces catching the glow, their stoic gazes fixed on horizons no human will ever fully traverse. They were built by hands like ours, but their scale and presence speak of vision, of devotion, of something beyond the ordinary. And consider this, the Rapa Nui people carved nearly 900 statues over centuries. Each one required extraordinary effort, quarrying the stone, shaping it with stone tools, planning its journey, moving it into position. The sheer dedication suggests a society deeply connected to its land, its ancestors, and the cosmos. And yet, despite this incredible achievement, their culture suffered. Perhaps the very process of creating these giants, moving them, felling trees, straining resources, played a role in the challenges they faced. Easter Island is a lesson in both human ingenuity and fragility. The Moai are triumphs of engineering, art, and spirituality, but they are also silent witnesses to the consequences of environmental overreach, to the delicate balance between ambition and sustainability. And even after centuries, they continue to puzzle and inspire. The way they were moved, the precision of their placement, the unseen rituals that surrounded them, these mysteries remain. Even with modern simulations and experiments, there is something intangible about the process, something about the rhythm of the island, the heartbeat of its people, the connection between stone and soil that we cannot fully reproduce. As night falls over Easter Island in your imagination, the ocean wind cools the earth. Stars emerge, mirrored in the calm Pacific waters. You can almost hear the faint echoes of the past, chants, footsteps, the scraping of stone against stone. The Moai stand as sentinels, guardians of stories we can no longer hear, reminders that even in isolation, humans have the power to create monuments that challenge time itself. And as we take one last glance at the island, consider the question that lingers. Why did the Rapa Nui people devote so much of their lives, their resources, to these statues? Was it purely spiritual? Was it a testament to power, to artistry, to devotion? Or is there some deeper meaning, lost to time, that we are only beginning to sense in fragments, in shadows, in the quiet weight of stone beneath our imagined hands? The Moai remind us of a truth we will encounter again and again, that human history is full of extraordinary effort and imagination, and yet some intentions and achievements remain elusive. Some knowledge, no matter how hard we study or simulate, slips just beyond our reach. From here, our journey will turn back toward continents with written history, yet still filled with puzzling enigmas. The Indus Valley awaits, with cities so planned, so sophisticated, that their secrets still lie buried beneath layers of earth and time. But for now, let the Moai settle in your mind. Giant, immovable, watching over a world that has moved on, yet still holding on to its quiet, enduring mysteries. From the windswept isolation of Easter Island, let your imagination drift northeast, across mountains and deserts, until you reach the fertile plains of the Indus River. Here, more than 4,000 years ago, a civilization rose that would confound historians for generations. Cities stretched across the landscape, perfectly planned, as though someone had drawn a blueprint directly onto the earth. Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa. These were the great urban centers of the Indus Valley. Walk slowly through their streets in your mind. The layout is striking, wide avenues intersecting at right angles, neighborhoods carefully organized, drainage systems running beneath homes and streets. The city is quiet now, abandoned, the echoes of daily life long gone. Yet the planning remains evident. Water flows through clay pipes, leading to wells and baths, keeping homes hygienic, orderly, and functional. Even by today's standards, the engineering is remarkable. Homes are built from baked bricks of uniform size, arranged in ways that maximize stability and space. Streets are straight, public spaces are delineated, marketplaces and granaries thoughtfully positioned. It is a civilization that understood order, measurement, and efficiency. Standardized weights and measures have been discovered, suggesting commerce and trade were sophisticated and well regulated. They knew the value of precision, not just in construction, but in daily life. And yet there is something profoundly quiet about this place. It lacks the grand monuments of Egypt, the enormous statues of Rapa Nui, or the megaliths of Baalbek. Its marvel lies in the subtle mastery of urban life, in the invisible lines of water, brick and stone that guided thousands of people through their days. This civilization understood complexity and organization, and yet it remains largely silent, as if deliberately elusive. Perhaps the most intriguing part is the script. Thousands of inscriptions have been discovered, etched onto seals, pottery, and small tablets. Tiny symbols, often accompanied by images of animals, plants, or abstract patterns. Scholars have tried to decode them for decades, applying every linguistic tool imaginable, and still the writing resists translation. The language of the Indus Valley remains locked away, a secret kept across millennia. Each seal, each carving feels like a whisper from a people who wanted to be understood, yet whose voices have not fully reached us. As you walk further into the imagination of these cities, picture the people going about their routines. Merchants trading goods along the straight streets, children playing near the wells, artisans shaping clay and weaving textiles. Every detail of daily life is structured, efficient, functional. Yet above it all hovers a mystery. Without a Rosetta Stone, without clear records, we can only guess at their beliefs, their leaders, their rituals, and then, as suddenly as they appear in history, they vanish. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus cities seem to have been abandoned. Scholars debate the reasons. Perhaps shifts in climate reduced the flow of the river. Perhaps floods or earthquakes reshaped the land. Perhaps trade networks collapsed, or internal political structures failed. Whatever the cause, the cities emptied, leaving streets and drains intact, but filled with silence. Nature began to reclaim the brick-lined avenues. The river changed course, dust settled, and the cities slept, buried in earth for thousands of years before modern discovery. Stand here for a moment in this imagined city, the sun low on the horizon, shadows stretching along the walls of houses. The smell of baked clay lingers faintly, carried on the wind. You can almost hear the faintest echoes of life, the clatter of pots, the laughter of children, the distant calls of merchants. Yet all of it is gone. Only the meticulous urban planning remains, a skeleton of a civilization that understood sophistication and order, yet disappeared before its story could be fully told. Think about the drainage systems. Most cities of the ancient world required careful maintenance to prevent disease and decay. Yet in Mohenjo-Daro, water flowed seamlessly from homes into covered drains, down the streets, out to the river. Public baths were designed with careful attention to cleanliness and ritual. These people had mastered the practical needs of thousands of citizens long before other civilizations attempted similar feats. And then there are the standard weights, small, carved stones, carefully balanced, used for trade. This suggests a society that demanded fairness, consistency, and measurement in everyday life. Combined with the urban planning and plumbing, it paints a picture of a people both meticulous and practical. The Indus Valley was sophisticated in ways that we are still discovering. Yet there are no grand tombs, no palaces, no temples left behind. Perhaps these existed but were made of perishable materials that have vanished. Or perhaps the culture expressed its achievements in subtlety rather than grandeur. The mystery deepens with each uncovered brick, each seal, each fragment of pottery. We see mastery, yet the heart of the society, their stories, beliefs, and leaders, remains obscured. Imagine walking along the streets as the sun rises, workers carry clay, water flows through channels, and life begins as it did thousands of years ago. Every step feels deliberate, every space purposeful, and yet all of this vanished, leaving behind questions we cannot fully answer. What rituals did they practice? How did they govern themselves? How did they respond to crisis, to change, to the world around them? Even their disappearance is mysterious. There is no record of conquest, no evidence of massive invasion, just silence. Streets that were bustling, suddenly empty, Homes that were warm and filled with life left to the wind and the dust. Nature reclaimed its space, and for centuries the Indus Valley slept beneath earth and sediment. And so, as night falls in your imagination over this fertile plain, imagine standing in the middle of a wide avenue, the remnants of brick walls on either side, the sound of wind in your ears. Think of the people who once lived here, their ingenuity, their careful planning, their unseen language. They achieved something remarkable, something that continues to puzzle and inspire modern researchers. The Indus Valley reminds us of the fragility of human endeavor, yet also of its brilliance. A civilization that thrived quietly, that mastered organization and engineering, that disappeared almost without a trace. Its lessons are subtle, hidden in the alignment of bricks, the flow of water, the balance of weights. It is a reminder that the world has always contained wonders that may never be fully understood. And from here, our wandering takes us northward to lands that would give rise to monumental heads of stone, a society that predated and influenced civilizations to come. The Olmecs of Mesoamerica await, with their enigmatic basalt sculptures, a different kind of marvel, equally silent and extraordinary. Long before modern cities and industrial ports, before the waves lapped against steel harbors, there existed a place both familiar and lost, Doggerland. Imagine it as it once was, roughly 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. The seas were lower, the coastline stretched far beyond today's limits, and what is now water was fertile land, rolling hills, forests thick with oak and pine, rivers winding lazily through valleys. Herds of deer, aurochs, and wild horses grazed freely. Humans lived here, moving with the seasons, hunting, fishing, building settlements. This was Europe's hidden cradle, a land bridging Britain with the rest of the continent. Archaeologists have pieced together fragments of its story, slowly, from beneath the waves. What was once submerged is now glimpsed in cores of sediment, in fossilized remains, in tools and artifacts dredged up from the seabed. Flint tools hint at communities skilled in hunting and crafting. Bones of animals, some eaten, some perhaps used ritually, speak of everyday survival and a deep connection with nature. Stone structures, hearths, and evidence of dwellings emerge from sonar scans, confirming that people once walked where now only tides touch. The image is almost cinematic, a land alive with people, life, and movement, now vanished beneath water. Doggerland was not an isolated island, it was part of the pulse of prehistoric Europe. People here shared knowledge, goods, and perhaps stories with communities hundreds of miles away. They cultivated the earth in small ways, hunted in organized groups, and lived according to cycles of sun and moon. In essence, it was a thriving society, simple in tools but rich in life. And then the water began to rise. As glaciers melted and sea levels slowly crept higher, the land started to disappear. Rivers swelled, low-lying valleys flooded, forests drowned in salt water, and homes were abandoned. Around 8,000 years ago, Doggerland was fully submerged, leaving only small islands and the edges of its hills above water. Over centuries, memory of the land faded, becoming myth for those who came later, whispers of a place that once was. Imagine standing on its plains as the first waters seep in. The rising tides would have been slow but inexorable. Families may have watched rivers swell beyond their banks, animals fleeing to higher ground. Communities relocated, but their stories, their ways of life, were fragmented by the water. Over generations, the memory of Doggerland was lost to the sea. Yet, fragments remain, hidden beneath waves, waiting to be rediscovered by those willing to look. The evidence of human activity beneath the North Sea tells us something remarkable. The sea has swallowed civilizations before. Not just Doggerland, but perhaps countless other settlements, lost in floods, tsunamis, or rising tides. It is a reminder that the map of human history is incomplete, shaped not only by what survives but by what has been claimed by nature. For every city we uncover, there may be dozens more resting beneath oceans hidden in plain sight. And it's not just physical remains. When you think of Doggerland, consider also the lives, the thoughts, the rituals that have been erased. How did people mourn their land? How did they adapt to the rising waters? Did they tell stories to remember it? Songs and legends passed down for generations? Even in silence, the land beneath the sea speaks. Each dredged tool, each submerged hearth, each fossil is a whisper of human ingenuity and resilience. Doggerland also challenges the way we imagine prehistory. We often picture early humans in isolation, scattered in small groups, clinging to survival. But here was a substantial landmass supporting sustained communities connected to wider networks across Europe. These people shaped their environment, used resources with skill, and lived lives as complex in their own way as civilizations that would follow. Their disappearance underwater reminds us how fragile human settlements can be in the face of slow, unstoppable change. And yet, there is a quiet beauty in thinking about Doggerland. Its forests, rivers, and hills, long submerged, exist now in fragments beneath the sea. The seabed preserves their story in sediment, in artifacts, in traces of life that were once vibrant. Every sonar scan that reveals a ridge or hearth, every dredged arrowhead, is a small resurrection of a vanished world. You can almost imagine walking its plains once more, feeling the wind in your hair, hearing the calls of birds and animals, stepping carefully along the riverbanks that will one day be swallowed. Doggerland reminds us too of the impermanence of human achievement. Cities rise and fall, monuments crumble, knowledge is lost, and landscapes themselves change. What we take for granted as permanent, coastlines, hills, even entire regions, can vanish over time, leaving only traces for future generations to interpret. It is humbling and strangely comforting to realize that the Earth has always been changing, long before we ever recorded it. And perhaps the greatest mystery is this: what else lies beneath the seas today? What other lost lands, lost civilizations, or unknown settlements await discovery? For every Doggerland we find, the ocean may hold countless more, swallowed by time and tide. Some may contain tools, buildings, or artifacts. Others may be simpler, quiet places where people once lived, loved, and worked, their stories now hidden in silence. As night falls in your imagination, picture the waves lapping gently over what was once land. The North Sea, dark and deep, covers everything with a smooth, unbroken surface. Below, remnants of houses, tools, and memories rest quietly, untouched, for thousands of years. And above, the stars shine in a clear northern sky, reflecting in the water, as if linking past and present, reminding us that even vanished civilizations leave a mark on the world. Doggerland, Europe's forgotten Atlantis, lingers in our minds as a paradox, thriving, advanced, yet erased. Its people, its towns, its daily rhythms lost, but not entirely gone. Fragments remain, waiting for the curious, the patient, the imaginative, to piece together its story. And in imagining it, we touch a distant echo of human life, a whisper from a land now beneath waves, yet still alive in memory. And as we leave Doggerland behind, our wandering turns once again to lands of stone, sculpture, and human ingenuity. The Olmecs of Mesoamerica await, with colossal basalt heads staring silently across the centuries, carved by hands that knew no written records, but left enduring mysteries in stone. From the sunken plains of Doggerland, let your imagination drift south across oceans and forests to a land alive with warmth, rivers, and dense jungle. Here, in what is now southern Mexico, the first great civilization of Mesoamerica took shape, the Olmecs. Their world was humid and green with the constant hum of insects and birds, and rivers winding like ribbons through the lowlands. This was a place of life and motion, of people and ritual, yet also of secrets waiting to be discovered. The Olmecs are perhaps best known to us for one remarkable achievement: colossal heads carved from basalt, each one unique, each one larger than life. Some weigh as much as 20 tons, their features striking, solemn, and lifelike. The faces are not abstract. They are individuals, though we cannot name them. They wear headdresses and display expressions that seem deeply human, yet entirely remote, gazing silently across centuries. Imagine standing before one. Your eyes lift slowly to meet the enormous scale, and for a moment it feels as if the figure could awaken, turning its gaze toward you. And yet these sculptures are only one part of the Olmec's story. Beneath the jungle canopy, evidence of a society emerges: planned ceremonial centers, pyramidal mounds, and plazas arranged with purpose. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt or Baalbek stones, the Olmecs left no written history, or if they did, it has been mostly lost. Some inscriptions exist in a script not fully deciphered, hinting at language and record-keeping that remain frustratingly elusive. Their legacy is therefore patchy, glimpsed only through stone, pottery, and remnants of ritual. Imagine the effort involved in transporting these massive basalt heads. The stone was quarried miles away, often in rugged terrain, and moved using only simple tools, rolling logs, and human strength. Each head was then positioned carefully, likely atop platforms or mounds, to watch over plazas where ceremonies were held. To think that a civilization without wheeled vehicles or draft animals could achieve this level of precision is humbling. Each statue embodies not only skill but planning, coordination, and vision. Yet the Olmecs were more than their heads. Their culture thrived from around 1500 BCE to 400 BCE, predating both the Maya and the Aztec civilizations that would later dominate Mesoamerica. They developed agriculture, cultivating maize, beans, and squash, and traded extensively with neighboring regions. Artifacts, jade carvings, and ceremonial objects reveal a society with rich spiritual beliefs and complex social structures. Some scholars suggest they were the mother culture of Mesoamerica, passing on innovations in ritual, astronomy, and urban planning to later civilizations. Still, so much about the Olmecs remains mysterious. We cannot read their thoughts, understand their government, or know the stories that gave rise to these massive heads. Were they rulers, priests, ancestors, immortalized in stone? Or did each head represent something more abstract, a spiritual force or deity? Without written records, we can only infer, imagining the ceremonies, the music, the voices that once filled the plazas. Walk with me in your mind through one of these ceremonial centers. The air is warm and thick, the scent of damp earth and growing plants heavy. People gather in the open spaces, children at play, priests preparing rituals, the hum of daily life intertwined with the sacred. The basalt heads loom, casting long shadows, silent witnesses to the movement of generations. Each step on the packed earth, each careful arrangement of offerings, each carved stone tells part of a story we can almost hear but never fully comprehend. And yet the Olmecs left an enduring impression. The traditions of ball games, ritual practices, and artistic styles can be traced forward through centuries of Mesoamerican history. Later civilizations, including the Maya and Aztecs, built pyramids, created complex calendars, and developed sophisticated art forms. Was this inheritance directly influenced by the Olmecs, or did human ingenuity naturally converge across generations? Perhaps it is both. The Olmecs remain at the foundation, a culture that sparked ideas and traditions, yet whose voice remains muffled under layers of time. The heads themselves are intriguing in their individuality. No two are alike. Some feature broad noses, others more pointed. Some have full lips, others stern expressions. Some wear ornate headgear that may denote status, rank, or ceremonial function. To look at them is to see a people who valued individuality, yet also community, whose art was monumental yet deeply human in feeling. And then there is the mystery of scale. These statues were not just symbolic, they required immense effort. The Olmecs mobilized labor, resources, and knowledge to carve, transport, and position stone far beyond the ordinary capabilities of a small community. What drove them to such lengths? Spiritual devotion, political authority, desire for permanence. Perhaps all of these intertwined in ways we can only sense, like shadows in the jungle undergrowth. Night in the imagined Olmec city is humid and alive with sound. Crickets and cicadas create a constant chorus. Smoke rises faintly from fires in the plazas, carrying scents of cooked maize and ritual incense. The colossal heads stand sentinel, catching moonlight on their broad faces, silent yet present, connecting the living and the dead, the past and the future. They embody both mystery and memory, a bridge across time for us to glimpse a culture that thrived, influenced generations, and then quietly receded into obscurity. And so the Olmecs linger in our minds not because of what we can fully understand, but because of what we cannot. They remind us that civilization is not always linear, that brilliance can exist without written history, and that human creativity has always found ways to astonish. Each basalt head, each fragment of jade, each ceremonial mound invites us to wonder, to imagine, and to feel a connection across thousands of years. As we leave the humid jungles of southern Mexico, consider the pattern that is emerging across our journey. Human history is scattered with achievements that puzzle, structures that inspire awe, and societies whose knowledge has been partially lost. From Doggerland to the Olmecs, we see echoes of ingenuity, hints of spiritual devotion, and traces of advanced skill that continue to defy simple explanation. And next, our wandering will take us even further back in time to a land of mountains and deserts where massive stone circles and astronomical alignments challenge our understanding of Neolithic societies. Stonehenge and its mysterious stones await, their silent rings poised beneath ancient skies, ready to whisper their own enigmas into the night. From the humid jungles of Mesoamerica, let your imagination drift northward, following the rivers and plains into what is now the United States. Near the modern city of St. Louis, along the winding Mississippi River, lies a place that was once a metropolis, teeming with life, ambition, and organization. Cahokia. Long before the arrival of European settlers, Cahokia was the largest city north of Mexico. Its population at its peak, around 1200 CE, may have rivaled or even exceeded that of London at the same time. Imagine the sounds of a bustling city carried across the flat river valley. The chatter of people, the footsteps on packed earth, the calls of merchants and artisans moving through plazas and along causeways. All of it now silent, hidden beneath grass, forest, and the modern city that sprawls nearby. The most striking feature of Cahokia is its earthen mounds. These are not mere hills, but monumental constructions, the largest being Monk's Mound, rising more than 100 feet high, covering 16 acres at its base. It is a scale that commands attention, a feat of engineering that would challenge a modern workforce. The mounds served multiple purposes: platforms for ceremonial buildings, elite residences, and gathering spaces for the city's inhabitants. Each mound was carefully designed, shaped, and maintained. Walking among them, you feel the weight of human effort, the collective labor of generations, and the quiet intensity of ambition carved in earth rather than stone. Cahokia's city layout was deliberate and precise. Streets and plazas were organized along cardinal directions. The central plaza, expansive and open, hosted gatherings, ceremonies, and perhaps markets. Wooden structures rose atop the mounds, their exact purposes still debated by archaeologists. Houses clustered around the central spaces, evidence of planning, zoning, and community structure. In a way, it mirrors the urban planning we saw in the Indus Valley, yet expressed through earthworks rather than brick. The city was alive, functioning, and sophisticated in ways we are only beginning to understand. Yet Cahokia is a mystery in more ways than one. Despite its scale and organization, there is little in the way of written records. The inhabitants left symbols, pottery designs, and figurines, but no written history comparable to the codices of Mesoamerica or inscriptions of the Olmecs. How they governed, how their political structures functioned, and even the full extent of their culture remains unclear. Archaeologists are left piecing together their story from earth, bones, and artifacts, creating a narrative as fragile and tentative as the mounds themselves. And then there is the question of disappearance. Around 1350 CE, Cahokia's population declined sharply. The reasons remain debated. Environmental changes, floods, deforestation, soil depletion may have played a role. Social unrest, disease, or internal political collapse may also have contributed. Whatever the cause, the city emptied, leaving behind a network of mounds and plazas, gradually overtaken by nature. Trees grew over the former streets, grass covered the mounds, and the Mississippi meandered on, indifferent to the vanished metropolis. Imagine standing on Monk's Mound in your mind, the sun low in the sky. From this height, you could have once seen the extent of the city, hundreds of structures, packed houses, ceremonial plazas, and causeways connecting neighborhoods. The river would have provided water, food, and trade routes. People lived, worked, and worshipped here, their lives interconnected in a web of community that now exists only in memory and soil. There is a rhythm to imagining Cahokia that feels different from other ancient cities. It is not dominated by stone temples or towering monuments. Instead, its grandeur comes from scale, from organization, from collective human effort, molded into the earth itself. Each mound represents hundreds of hands shaping soil, compacting clay, raising terraces. It is ephemeral and monumental at the same time, a city built not to last eternally in the same way as a pyramid, but to function, to sustain life, and to be impressive within its own time. And yet, it faded almost completely from memory. When Europeans arrived centuries later, Cahokia was largely overgrown, its significance forgotten. Why? Perhaps because its memory was oral, and the people who had maintained its knowledge were long gone. Perhaps because cities built of earth, impressive yet impermanent, leave fewer traces than those carved from stone. Whatever the reason, it raises a question that resonates across the mysteries we have visited. How many civilizations, sophisticated and thriving, have been forgotten simply because their records did not survive the passage of time? Walk slowly through this imagined city. Picture children running along paths between mounds, people tending gardens, artisans shaping tools and pottery. Imagine gatherings in the central plaza, ceremonies echoing across open spaces, and a society vibrant in culture, trade, and ritual. Each moment you envision adds life to a city that no longer exists above ground, but whose footprint remains in the earth, waiting for discovery. Cahokia also teaches us about adaptation. Its people understood the landscape, built resilient structures, managed resources, and engaged in complex social organization. Yet even the best planning could not protect against environmental changes or societal stresses. Nature, time, and circumstance reshaped the world, leaving only remnants for future generations to study and wonder over. Night falls in your imagination over Cahokia. The wind moves through the mounds, carrying scents of grass and river water. You can almost hear the faint echoes of past life, conversations, rituals, the rhythm of daily work, laughter and song. And in that silence, the city speaks to you, not through written words, but through the shapes of the earth, the alignment of mounds, the precision of construction. It whispers of a civilization that thrived, planned, and then vanished, leaving questions that will never be fully answered. And so, as we leave the plains of Cahokia behind, our wandering carries us southward again, this time across oceans and deserts to Africa, to a place where colossal stone statues rise from sand and granite quarries. Great Zimbabwe, a city of power and mystery, built by hands whose full story is still beyond our grasp. From the silent mounds of Cahokia, let your imagination drift eastward, over oceans and mountains, to the warm waters of the Aegean Sea, near the Greek island of Antikythera. Here, beneath waves and centuries of sediment, a discovery awaited that would astonish modern science: the Antikythera Mechanism. It was 1901 when sponge divers stumbled upon a shipwreck, the hull long decayed, its cargo scattered across the seabed. Among the corroded bronze and fragments of pottery, they found something extraordinary: a compact, corroded assembly of gears and plates, unlike anything previously known from the ancient world. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, a piece of old bronze, but upon closer examination it revealed complexity that no ordinary artifact of its era could possess. The Antikythera mechanism is often called the first known analog computer. Its gears and dials were carefully arranged to predict astronomical events, eclipses of the sun and moon, the motions of the planets, the cycles of the moon. All could be calculated with astonishing precision. Each tooth of each gear had a purpose. Each dial turned in harmony with another, creating a miniature cosmos of bronze and ingenuity. To hold it in your mind is to see the heavens contained in the palm of a hand. Consider the craftsmanship. The gears are finely cut, calibrated to exacting standards, designed to mesh perfectly. Bronze, once cast and shaped, was carefully filed and assembled. Ancient Greek metalworkers had not only the tools but the vision to create a device that modeled the cosmos with precision. And yet, it is nearly 2,000 years ahead of its time. Nothing of comparable sophistication appears again until the astronomical clocks of the 14th century. How did such knowledge emerge only to vanish for centuries? Imagine the ship that carried it, laden with cargo and people. Perhaps scholars or traders were aboard, bringing precious knowledge from one port to another. The device might have been a tool for astronomers, priests, or navigators, a means to chart the sky with accuracy, to predict patterns that governed both ritual and daily life. And then the ship sinks. The mechanism, intended to calculate the heavens, rests silently beneath waves, forgotten for millennia, until modern divers pull it into light again. What was it like to use? Turn one dial and the moon's cycle appears. Another, and the planets align as they will across the year. A small pointer marks eclipses months in advance. The hands of the mechanism traced celestial rhythms long before telescopes, long before Newton, before much of the scientific foundation of Europe had been laid. In its operation, there is poetry, a machine that mirrors the sky, compact, precise, and elegant. Its discovery challenges assumptions about ancient knowledge. When we think of the Greeks, we imagine philosophy, mathematics, and early science, but rarely do we envision hands assembling complex gears into a functioning predictive device. Yet here it is. This tiny mechanism is proof that human ingenuity has repeatedly leapt beyond expectations, that civilizations we consider primitive sometimes achieved what we can barely replicate today. And yet, its secrets are incomplete. The mechanism survives only in fragments, corroded and worn. Modern researchers reconstruct its functions using imaging techniques, X-rays and 3D modeling, but gaps remain. How many more dials were there? What else could it calculate? Was it part of a series, a prototype, or a unique masterpiece? Each revelation raises further questions, each gear a whisper from a mind long gone. Imagine holding it in your hands, turning a dial slowly. Feel the weight of bronze, the precision of teeth meshing, the quiet hum of a device that models the cosmos. In your mind, watch as the pointer moves, eclipses predicted, planetary positions revealed. Centuries of thought and labor distilled into a portable instrument. And then imagine it sinking beneath waves, lying in darkness for generations, waiting for a world that could finally comprehend it. Its existence also makes one wonder about lost knowledge. How many other devices, other ideas, other achievements have been swallowed by time? The mechanism survived only because the sea preserved it. Countless other inventions may have disappeared entirely. Bronze, wood, stone, all decomposed, all gone. And with them, insights into mathematics, astronomy, or engineering vanished, leaving us only fragments and tantalizing glimpses. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than a machine. It is a reminder of human curiosity and vision. It embodies an understanding of cycles, motion, and prediction that seems impossibly advanced for its era. It is also a meditation on impermanence. Even extraordinary knowledge can disappear, leaving behind only questions, inspiring us to imagine what else might have been possible. Night falls over the Aegean in your mind, the sea dark and still, waves lapping softly against the shores of islands scattered like jewels. Beneath these waters, remnants of the shipwreck sleep. Bronze gears lie quietly among corroded fragments, once designed to unlock the cosmos, now waiting for modern eyes to trace their paths. The stars above, reflected faintly on the waves, mirror the mechanism's own work. The heavens moving with predictable grace, even as human understanding struggles to catch up. And in thinking of it, you see the continuity of wonder. From Baalbek to Pumapunku, from Easter Island to the Indus Valley, from Doggerland to Cahokia and the Olmecs, humans have built, crafted, and imagined beyond the boundaries of what seems possible. And then, like the Antikythera Mechanism, some achievements vanish, leaving only fragments, questions, and the quiet pull of curiosity across time. The mechanism invites reflection. What does it mean for a civilization to create something so advanced, and yet to lose the knowledge almost immediately afterward? Was it hubris, circumstance, or simply the fragility of human memory? Perhaps the same forces that eroded its creator's society, the passage of time, environmental change, or societal collapse, claimed countless other secrets as well. And so, as we leave the sunlit waters of Greece and the bronze gears of the mechanism behind, carry with you its quiet lesson. That ingenuity is timeless, curiosity is eternal, and the world is filled with mysteries that challenge what we know about the past. From here, our wandering will turn to the desert sands of Egypt once more, not to the pyramids we've seen, but to the lost treasures and unsolved enigmas of ancient tombs, the silent crypts and artifacts that have defied explanation for millennia. But for now, let the Antikythera Mechanism linger in your imagination. Small, precise, bronze, and impossibly advanced, a machine that reminds us that history is never as simple as it seems, and that some of the most remarkable human achievements have been quietly waiting beneath the waves, patiently whispering their secrets. From the precise bronze gears of the Antikythera Mechanism, let your imagination drift southeast, across deserts, rivers, and ancient trade routes to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates meet. Here, amidst ruins that have seen empires rise and fall, a small, unassuming artifact rests quietly in a museum, its story still whispering enigmas through the corridors of time. The Baghdad Battery. At first glance it seems ordinary, a clay jar weathered and cracked, with a cylindrical copper tube inside and an iron rod at its center. It is compact, modest, almost humble. Yet when it was studied in the 20th century, a curious possibility emerged. Fill the jar with an acidic liquid and the assembly could generate a weak electrical current. The implication is striking. Could ancient people, thousands of years ago, have known something about electricity, something we did not expect from their time? Imagine a craftsman in Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago, shaping clay, hammering copper, inserting iron rods. Was he experimenting with currents, with sparks and reactions, with forces unseen but sensed in the world? Or was this object entirely symbolic, a tool for ritual, a vessel to hold magic, not electrons? We cannot know. The jar itself is mute, offering no explanation, only the potential to astonish. Consider the context. Mesopotamia was a world of innovation. People recorded numbers and trade on clay tablets, constructed canals and cities, built monumental ziggurats, and observed the stars with remarkable precision. Could experimentation with electricity have been another thread in their ingenuity? Or are we projecting our modern understanding onto objects whose purpose was entirely different? The ambiguity is part of the fascination. The Baghdad Battery challenges assumptions. We expect electricity to belong to modern times, to lamps, wires and machines. Yet here is an artifact that in form and function suggests the potential for electrical understanding far earlier than we imagined. And yet we have no evidence of wiring, lights, or technological applications. Was it simply a curiosity, a religious implement, or a tool whose function is now lost, like so many other objects in ancient history? Picture the jar in its original setting. Perhaps it rested on a shelf in a temple, or the home of a priest or artisan. Perhaps liquids were poured into it during rituals. Perhaps hands held it carefully, aware of its delicate components, sensing the faint hum of reaction, if not yet understanding it as we do today. Each possibility evokes a different kind of wonder. Each scenario underscores the ingenuity, observation, and subtle experimentation that might have been occurring silently in private spaces, far from the monumental architecture that usually dominates history. And then think of its discovery, buried for centuries beneath layers of earth, unnoticed, until modern archaeologists found it near Baghdad in the 1930s. At first, it was catalogued as a simple pot. Only careful study revealed the copper cylinder and iron rod, the potential for a reaction. Scientists recreated the experiment, filled jars with grape juice or vinegar, and saw the tiny current hum to life. It is modest, weak, enough perhaps to plate gold or create small chemical reactions, but astonishing in concept. A spark from antiquity, preserved in clay and metal. The implications are haunting. If the Baghdad Battery was used for electroplating, ritual, or experimentation, it suggests knowledge lost to history. There is no written record explaining its purpose. Other jars like it exist, hinting at a tradition or practice that we barely glimpse. Was this an isolated curiosity or part of a larger, forgotten understanding of natural forces? Was there a line of experimentation that ended abruptly, leaving only these jars as evidence? Imagine the quiet patience it would have taken to craft such a device. Clay molded, copper hammered, iron smoothed, everything aligned. In a culture obsessed with precision, astronomy, and record-keeping, even the smallest artifact could hold significance far beyond its size. Perhaps it was a lesson in observation, in trial and error. Perhaps it was sacred, perhaps it was nothing at all, yet its existence invites contemplation, a reflection on human curiosity, and the relentless desire to probe the unknown. And like so many artifacts we have encountered, it is a bridge between the practical and the mysterious. The Antikythera Mechanism revealed astronomical knowledge beyond expectation. The Baghdad Battery hints at scientific curiosity in an age we often assume lacked electricity. Both remind us that human ingenuity is not linear, that knowledge can emerge, vanish, and re-emerge in ways that challenge our assumptions about progress. At night, imagine the jar resting in a dimly lit room, a lamp casting shadows across its curves. Perhaps the priest who used it long ago poured acidic liquids into it, noting reactions, contemplating unseen forces. Perhaps it was placed on an altar, revered without understanding, a vessel of potential and mystery. And centuries later, we uncover it, recreate its function, marvel at its sophistication, and realize how much is hidden in the spaces between knowledge and imagination. The Baghdad Battery invites questions that ripple outward. What else did ancient peoples observe and experiment with that we have yet to understand? How many small artifacts quietly buried hold secrets that could reshape our sense of history? How many moments of discovery, innovation, or ritual have been lost simply because time was patient and humans fragile? It also reminds us of scale, small, personal, quiet scale. Not like the enormous Moai or the monumental mounds of Cahokia. This is a subtle achievement, almost invisible unless you know what to look for. Yet it is profound because it represents thought, observation, and the spark of understanding that links humans across millennia. And so, as we leave the deserts of Mesopotamia, the Tigris and Euphrates flowing silently in your imagination, the Baghdad Battery rests in your mind as a symbol of hidden knowledge, small, corroded, and unassuming, yet capable of stirring wonder, curiosity, and reflection on the vast, unrecorded achievements of the ancient world. From here, our wandering will carry us across oceans to Asia, to a civilization that flourished along rivers, leaving behind enormous terracotta warriors in silent army formations guarding secrets of power, belief, and artistry. The Qin dynasty of China awaits, ready to reveal another layer of human ingenuity and enduring mystery. From the quiet spark of the Baghdad Battery, let your imagination drift westward across deserts and mountains to the sun-scorched hills of Judea near the Dead Sea. Here, among caves and ancient settlements, a discovery was made in the mid-20th century that would challenge historians and treasure hunters alike: the Copper Scroll. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, fragile parchment or papyrus inscribed with scripture and wisdom, this scroll was made of metal, thin sheets of copper carefully inscribed with lettering that has endured for nearly 2 millennia. The material alone sets it apart, resistant to decay, stubbornly preserving its contents, even when the sands and salts of the desert would have claimed other writings long ago. The content is startling, a list, not of laws, prophecies, or wisdom, but of treasures. Hundreds of locations across Judea, it claims, where gold, silver, and precious artifacts were hidden. Temples, cisterns, caves, and fortified sites are described, accompanied by amounts of metal and wealth that would astonish even the richest kings of the period. The scroll reads almost like a ledger, cataloguing riches with meticulous care, a map of vanished opulence written in a hand now lost to history. Picture it in your mind's eye. The copper sheets, carefully rolled and tied, lying in a dark cave for centuries. Perhaps those who hid it did so during a time of upheaval, the Roman occupation, rebellions, or the chaos of conflict. They etched instructions, knowing that only the careful or faithful would decipher it. Then they left, vanished, or were defeated, leaving the scroll undisturbed until modern eyes stumbled upon it. And that is the essence of its mystery. Scholars have tried for decades to locate the treasures, following every hint and clue, translating the inscriptions, and even combining ancient geography with modern surveys. Yet the riches themselves remain elusive. Some suggest that the numbers were symbolic, representing the wealth of a sacred community or temple, rather than physical gold and silver. Others believe the treasure was real, spirited away and hidden forever by its original guardians. The ambiguity is intoxicating, leaving room for imagination to wander across Judean hills, into dark caves and down forgotten tunnels. The Copper Scroll also challenges expectations of ancient record-keeping, its precision, its focus on tangible wealth, its methodical structure, all hint at a culture that valued careful planning and secrecy. Unlike the poetic or religious nature of other Dead Sea Scrolls, this is practical, almost businesslike, and yet it is still human, mysterious, tantalizing, and ultimately unknowable in its full intention. Imagine reading it yourself, candlelight flickering against copper letters. Your fingers trace the shapes, your eyes follow the directions, and for a moment you are transported to the hills of Judea. Each word, each number, is a breadcrumb left by someone long gone, a voice echoing across 2,000 years, inviting pursuit, reflection, and wonder. Were these treasures buried in preparation for a time of war? Were they ritual offerings, sacred stores, or the spoils of conquest? The scroll does not answer. It merely insists that something once existed, waiting, hiding, and enduring. There is a rhythm to imagining the scroll's creation. First, the labor of shaping the copper, softening and flattening it, preparing it for engraving. Then the painstaking etching of letters, each line deliberate, each instruction carefully planned. Unlike ink or paint, it cannot be easily corrected. Mistakes are permanent. Whoever created it understood permanence in a literal sense. The message, the map, the knowledge was intended to survive. And survive it has, though the treasures themselves may have been lost to time, theft, or perhaps never existed as described. The Copper Scroll is also remarkable for its perspective on human desire and ambition. Even in ancient times, the pursuit of wealth, the need to protect it, and the hope of retrieving it later shaped behavior, culture, and writing. It is a document of longing and foresight, human imagination, and meticulous care, frozen in metal. It bridges the tangible and the speculative, the historical and the legendary, offering a tantalizing glimpse into priorities and fears of its creators. And in thinking of it, consider the landscape itself, the rocky hills, the dry riverbeds, the caves carved into limestone. Walking there in your mind, you can almost hear the crunch of sand underfoot, the distant cry of birds, the whisper of wind against the cliffs. Picture someone carefully lowering a chest of silver into a hidden cavity, covering it with stones, and rolling a copper scroll alongside, etched with instructions meant to endure time and chaos. Then imagine that person leaving, never to return, the secret slipping into shadows, waiting for centuries to challenge the curiosity of future generations. The Copper Scroll also reminds us of the fragility and selectivity of historical memory. Ordinary events, everyday life, and even monumental human actions can be lost without a trace. But in a deliberate act, knowledge can be preserved, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Clay jars, bronze devices, copper sheets, each material chosen for durability, each action reflecting foresight, care, and perhaps an awareness of mortality and the impermanence of human achievement. And so, the Copper Scroll is a meditation as much as it is a map. It is a link between present curiosity and ancient intention, between tangible wealth and the abstract wonder it inspires today. It whispers not only about gold and silver, but about the human need to plan, to preserve, to imagine, and to leave a mark upon the world. Each line of etched letters becomes a bridge across time, inviting reflection, pursuit, and reverie. As night falls over the Judean hills in your mind, picture the desert sky, pale and vast, stars reflected faintly in the salt waters of the Dead Sea. The caves are silent, the scroll hidden in shadow, carrying centuries of mystery. And in that quiet, consider how many other treasures, material or intellectual, might have been lost, hidden, or preserved, waiting for the patient and curious to uncover them. And so, as we leave the copper sheets behind, our wandering continues. From the hills of Judea we turn east again, across deserts, mountains and rivers, toward a civilization that buried its dead with treasures, built vast pyramids of gold and stone, and whose secrets still echo in the sands of Egypt, the mysterious tombs that guard stories of power, ritual, and the enduring questions of what has been lost and what remains. From the sun-scorched hills of Judea and the hidden treasures of the Copper Scroll, let your imagination drift northward to Europe, to a dimly lit scriptorium in the late medieval period. Here, tucked away among shelves of vellum and ink, a book emerged, one that would confound, fascinate, and quietly haunt scholars for centuries. This is the Voynich manuscript, a book that exists like a whisper from another world, its pages filled with secrets still undeciphered. At first glance, it is a book like any other, bound, handwritten, filled with carefully drawn illustrations. But then the eyes trace the text, and it becomes clear that this is no ordinary writing. The script is unlike any known alphabet, flowing in strange, looping patterns, repeated words and structures forming a language invisible to modern understanding. Scholars have tried tirelessly to decode it, to match its letters to Latin, German, Hebrew, or even constructed languages, but none have succeeded. It reads like a puzzle centuries old, deliberately obscured, or perhaps simply beyond our comprehension. Turn the pages in your mind. The manuscript is lavishly illustrated, each image more bizarre than the last. Strange plants, some resembling known species but twisted and fantastical, fill the margins. The colours are rich, greens, reds, yellows and blues that have survived time remarkably well. Many of the plants are unrecognizable, as if plucked from a dream or a world slightly askew from our own. Some pages contain diagrams of human figures, sometimes floating in pools of green liquid, connected by tubes or veins, mysterious yet strangely meticulous. Other sections are devoted to celestial charts, stars and moons in arrangements that echo the heavens, though often in configurations that defy familiar astronomy. And then there are the patterns. Circular charts, spiraling shapes, diagrams that seem mathematical or astrological in purpose. They suggest that the manuscript is not merely decorative, but a compendium of knowledge, medicine, cosmology, botany, or something else entirely. Yet the content eludes interpretation. We can see structure, organization, and purpose, but the meaning remains locked behind a cipher, a language lost or invented. Imagine the patience required to craft such a volume, each stroke deliberate, each page filled with intent, even as the words themselves resist comprehension. Some have speculated that it is an elaborate hoax, a joke played on future generations, its script meaningless, its images a whimsical creation meant to deceive or amuse. Others argue that it is a repository of lost knowledge, perhaps a medical guide, an herbal manual, or even a spiritual text encoded to protect its wisdom. Perhaps it is both, or neither, its origins murky, its purpose veiled. The mystery is precisely what makes it so compelling. Imagine the scribe at work, quill in hand, inks of vivid color spread across the page. Perhaps they were copying from older sources no longer extant, preserving knowledge in a code only they understood. Perhaps they were guided by intuition, creating illustrations of plants that grew in hidden gardens, or charts of stars observed from rooftops or monasteries. Each line, each page, represents hours of labor, of concentration, of thought distilled into ink and vellum. And yet the manuscript remains silent on its intent, a puzzle that whispers across centuries. The Voynich manuscript also invites reflection on human curiosity and the limits of understanding. It challenges assumptions about literacy, knowledge, and preservation. In a world where most texts were religious or administrative, here is a book that resists categorization, that embodies a different mode of thought, oblique, complex, imaginative. To study it is to recognize that the medieval mind was capable of wonder and creativity equal to our own, that knowledge was not always linear or recorded in ways we can readily interpret. Consider the human element. Whoever created it had vision, dexterity, and a keen observational eye. The plants are drawn with care, the human figures with attention to proportion, the diagrams with geometric precision. Even the script, though indecipherable, flows with rhythm and repetition, suggesting a coherent system. It is not chaos, it is intent wrapped in enigma. And in imagining that person at work, one feels a connection across time, a bridge between curiosity, then, and inquiry, now. The manuscript's journey is as mysterious as its contents. It surfaced in the early 17th century, purchased by a collector named Voynich in 1912, and has since travelled through libraries, scholars' hands, and scientific examinations. Modern imaging techniques, statistical analyses, and cryptographic efforts have teased out patterns but not meanings. Each study deepens fascination, yet the central secret remains hidden. Like the Antikythera Mechanism or the Baghdad battery, it is evidence that human ingenuity often leaves traces we struggle to fully comprehend, and in that quiet pondering lies its magic. The Voynich manuscript reminds us that history is not always clear, that knowledge can be encoded in ways we do not yet understand, and that human imagination can produce wonders that elude even the most determined attempts at interpretation. It is a testament to patience, curiosity, and the enduring allure of mystery. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit library, candle flickering, the scent of old parchment in the air, as you turn each page slowly, tracing illustrations, murmuring sounds of the strange script. You feel the presence of the scribe, a mind long vanished, leaving a legacy that survives only in symbols, patterns, and imagination. You wonder what they intended, what knowledge might be hidden, and whether you are glimpsing fragments of wisdom that the world was not yet ready to understand. The Voynich manuscript stands among our collection of unsolved mysteries, not because it is monumental like Baalbek or precise like the Antikythera Mechanism, but because it is personal, intimate, and confounding. It is small enough to hold, yet vast in the scope of its enigma. It is tactile, visual, textual, and yet completely elusive in meaning. A perfect companion for reflection, for late-night wandering in thought, and for the quiet joy of contemplating the unknown. And so, as the candlelight dims in your imagination, the manuscript rests open before you, its bizarre plants, astrological charts, and looping script forming a tapestry of centuries-old mystery. It encourages you to wonder, to speculate, and to imagine the thoughts and knowledge of minds that have vanished, leaving only a book that refuses to be fully understood. From here, our wandering will carry us back across oceans and deserts to the Americas, to a site of astronomical mystery, massive stones and a civilization that vanished, leaving behind puzzles in alignment, measurement, and design. The enigmatic city of Teotihuacan waits, its streets and pyramids poised beneath the ancient sky, ready to whisper secrets into the night. But for now, let the Voynich manuscript linger in your mind, a book of undeciphered knowledge, of impossible imagination, and of enduring enigma, a reminder that not all secrets are meant to be solved, yet all invite us to look closer, linger longer, and imagine more deeply. From the strange, looping letters of the Voynich manuscript, let your imagination drift south to the Mediterranean, to the bustling port city of Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great. Picture the golden sunlight shimmering over the harbor, ships laden with papyrus, scrolls, and ideas from across the ancient world. It was here, amid the convergence of cultures, trade, and intellect, that one of the greatest centers of human knowledge emerged, the Library of Alexandria. The library is almost mythical in reputation, yet it was real, an institution of ambition, curiosity, and intellect. Scholars came from across the Hellenistic world, bringing scrolls from Egypt, Greece, Persia, India, and beyond. Papyri covered every conceivable subject: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, history, philosophy. Each scroll represented the accumulated observations of generations, carefully recorded, copied, and preserved. Imagine halls lined with hundreds of thousands of texts, the faint rustle of papyrus, and the low murmur of scholars debating, reading, and writing. It was more than a library. It was a laboratory of the mind, a workshop of civilization. Astronomers charted the stars, mathematicians calculated, physicians studied anatomy, and philosophers speculated about the nature of reality. In the mind's eye, you can picture a scholar examining a scroll on optics, another sketching maps of distant lands, perhaps even records of technologies or techniques that have been lost to time. Alexandria was a hub where knowledge could grow, spread, and inspire. Yet with grandeur comes tragedy. The library did not survive. Over centuries, it faced fire, conquest, neglect, and political upheaval. Scrolls were burned, sometimes intentionally, sometimes accidentally, millions of words vanishing into smoke and ash. The exact scale of destruction is impossible to know, the extent of what was lost a permanent void in human history. Histories, scientific observations, mathematical discoveries, literary works, all disappeared, leaving gaps we can only imagine. Imagine standing in one of its reading halls in your mind, scrolls stacked in orderly fashion, the air filled with the scent of papyrus and ink. Students and scribes move quietly, reading by the light of lamps, copying texts to send to distant libraries. And yet, beyond the walls, fires may be approaching, or political tides may shift, and the knowledge contained within these walls, meticulously collected and recorded, could vanish in an instant. It is a sobering reminder of how fragile human achievement can be, even when carefully preserved. What was lost? That is a question we can only dream about. Perhaps detailed maps of regions we now know only through modern surveys. Perhaps medical techniques and observations that could have accelerated centuries of discovery. Perhaps histories of peoples and cultures that no other source recorded. Every scroll destroyed was a thread cut from the tapestry of understanding, a silence imposed on voices that will never speak again. The library also reminds us of ambition. Its founders and scholars believed that knowledge could and should be collected, preserved, and shared. They imagined a repository of human understanding that could capture the sum of learning from across civilizations. The very scope of this vision is astonishing. Ships from far-flung lands brought texts with the hope of copying and storing them, reflecting an extraordinary confidence in the importance and durability of knowledge. And yet Alexandria is a meditation on impermanence as much as ambition. It teaches that human memory is fragile, that even the greatest institutions cannot fully protect what they hold. Knowledge can vanish through carelessness, through politics, through war. And what survives is often fragmentary, a few citations in later texts, mentions by historians, the faint echo of a voice long silenced. We reconstruct in imagination, piecing together from references, scraps, and hints, but we can never fully regain what was lost. Picture the lamps flickering as night falls in your imagination. Scholars gather scrolls discussing stars, geometry, and philosophy. In a distant corner, a mathematician measures angles while a physician records herbs and remedies. And above it all, perhaps, the librarian's catalogue, their minds trying to preserve as much as possible, knowing that the world is volatile and that knowledge is precious yet vulnerable. Each scroll handled with care, each page a treasure, each word a whisper across time. The Library of Alexandria also connects us to broader human curiosity. Like the Antikythera Mechanism, the Baghdad Battery, or the Copper Scroll, it reminds us that knowledge is not linear, and that civilizations can achieve extraordinary understanding and yet leave almost nothing behind. It is a meditation on the impermanence of human effort, a reminder that the world we inherit is shaped as much by what was lost as by what survived. And so as we leave the sunlit halls of Alexandria behind, let the echoes of the library linger in your mind. Imagine the scrolls, the debates, the careful copying, and the loss. Feel the weight of vanished knowledge and the quiet, persistent curiosity that drives us to uncover, reconstruct, and imagine what once was. From here, our wandering will drift back across the Mediterranean to mysterious islands, stones and carvings, places where ancient cultures recorded knowledge not in scrolls, but in stone aligned to stars and heavens, leaving questions about purpose, ritual, and astronomical understanding. From the silent echo of Alexandria's scrolls, let your mind drift deeper into the sands of Egypt, far beyond the Nile, into the vast, arid expanse of the Nubian desert. Here, hidden from casual sight, lies Nabta Playa, a place that predates Stonehenge by thousands of years, a testament to humanity's earliest fascination with the skies. Nabta Playa is a stone circle, carefully arranged by people whose names are lost to time. Its purpose is still a matter of research and wonder. Imagine ancient people gathering here, their lives shaped by the sun, the stars, and the slow passage of seasons. They may have observed the heavens night after night, year after year, noticing patterns, movements, alignments. In their observations they found meaning, structure, perhaps guidance for agriculture, ritual, or communal life. The stones themselves are modest yet deliberate. Arranged in circles, with some standing taller than a human adult, each stone's position corresponds to celestial phenomena, solstices, star risings, and other astronomical events. Imagine standing among them at dawn, feeling the warmth of the desert sun as it rises along a line carefully marked centuries before, watching as shadows stretch across the sands, aligning perfectly with the stones. Even in the absence of written records, the landscape itself becomes a calendar, a clock, a guide through the year. Archaeologists have discovered remnants of fire pits and evidence of seasonal gatherings, suggesting that Nabta Playa was not just a scientific site, but a ceremonial one as well. People may have come from miles around, bringing offerings, performing rituals, or simply observing the dance of stars overhead. It is a reminder that from the earliest times, humans were not merely surviving, they were seeking understanding, mapping the heavens and marking their place in the cosmos. Consider the scale of thought required to plan such a site. Without telescopes, modern instruments, or written star charts, these early sky watchers relied on patience, observation, and ingenuity. They noted the sun's rising and setting, the movement of constellations across seasons, and the alignment of celestial bodies with the horizon. It is a subtle yet profound achievement, knowledge encoded in stone, visible across generations, silent yet eloquent in its precision. Imagine the desert night. The sky stretches endlessly, dusted with stars, some bright, some faint, a cosmic tapestry above the dry, sandy earth. The people of Nabta Playa sit or stand among the stones, pointing to stars, telling stories, perhaps marking the solstice with ceremonies and offerings. There is rhythm to the night, the movement of celestial bodies, the crackle of fire, the low murmurs of conversation. Everything here is guided by observation and imagination, a fusion of science and ritual that leaves an enduring imprint on the land. The stones themselves have stories to tell. Some align with the rising of Sirius, others with the summer solstice, still others with stars whose positions have shifted slightly over millennia. Even today, with modern measurement, the precision is astonishing. It suggests that the people who built Nabta Playa had both a practical and spiritual understanding of the skies. They could track time, predict seasonal changes, and perhaps even anticipate floods or droughts, guiding their communities with a wisdom that combined empirical observation with cultural practice. And yet much about Nabta Playa remains unknown. Who exactly were the people who built it? How did they develop such sophisticated observation techniques? What rituals accompanied the alignments? Archaeology can provide clues, pottery fragments, burial sites, remnants of dwellings, but the full story is lost. We are left imagining lives in the desert, guided by the stars, building structures that still challenge our understanding of prehistoric knowledge. Nabta Playa also connects to a broader human fascination with the heavens. Across the world, from Stonehenge to Chichen Itza, from the pyramids to Machu Picchu, we see similar impulses: the desire to measure, to align, to understand. These early sky watchers remind us that curiosity is ancient, that the urge to map the universe and mark time is not modern, but intrinsic to humanity. Picture walking among the stones in the cool desert twilight. Shadows stretch long, the stars above appear more vividly than in modern cities, and the wind whispers across the sands. You sense a continuity with the people who first placed these stones, feeling their careful observation, their awe, and their desire to leave a lasting imprint. The landscape itself becomes a bridge across millennia, connecting your imagination to lives long past. Even small details matter. Some stones are carved with markings. Small alignments hint at astronomical cycles. Nearby fire pits suggest gatherings. Every element represents intention. There is no rush in their construction. Time itself was the measure, patience the tool, and observation the instrument. In this, Nabta Playa exemplifies the slow, quiet achievements of humanity, the kind of knowledge that is not always preserved in books or monuments but encoded in the land itself. And as night deepens in your mind, imagine the solstice dawn. The first light hits a particular stone, casting a perfect shadow along a designated line. People watch, quietly awed, marking the turning of the year. Generations would have repeated this, each adding small refinements, each watching and learning from the sky. Knowledge was accumulated slowly, meticulously, imperceptibly, yet profoundly. Nabta Playa invites reflection on human ingenuity, the persistence of curiosity, and the ways knowledge can be recorded without words. Unlike the scrolls of Alexandria or the copper of the Baghdad Battery or the Voynich manuscript, this knowledge is inscribed in landscape and stone. It is visible, tangible, yet still enigmatic, its full meaning eluding even our modern understanding. And so, as we leave the desert of Nabta Playa, the stones silent yet eloquent beneath the stars, carry with you the thought that the earliest humans were already looking up, mapping the heavens and seeking connection with the cosmos. This small, remote sight reminds us that our fascination with the sky, our desire to measure and understand, is older than written history, older than cities, older even than the first civilizations. From here, our wandering will drift back across continents to the Americas, to the city of Teotihuacan, where massive pyramids and avenues align with celestial events, offering another chapter in the story of humanity's obsession with the sky. From the quiet stones of Nabta Playa and the patient observations of ancient sky watchers, let your mind drift across continents and oceans to the arid plains of southern Peru. Here lies a landscape that at first glance appears almost barren, dusty desert stretching toward the horizon, baked under the relentless sun. Yet, from above, from a bird's-eye view, or a small plane cutting through the morning haze, the desert reveals its secrets, the Nazca Lines, enormous geoglyphs etched into the earth, stretching for miles, mysterious and mesmerizing. The Nazca Lines are unlike anything else in the world. Some depict animals, spiders, monkeys, hummingbirds, condors. Others, geometric shapes, long straight lines, trapezoids, and spirals. Their scale is staggering. The largest can extend over several hundred meters. From the ground, they often appear as simple grooves, subtle and easy to overlook. But from above, the images emerge in startling clarity, as if the desert itself has been transformed into a canvas by an unseen artist. Imagine the people of Nazca creating these enormous designs, working carefully with rudimentary tools, marking points along the flat desert floor, removing reddish stones to reveal lighter soil beneath. They may have used simple ropes, stakes, and measuring techniques, yet the precision achieved across vast distances is remarkable. There is an almost eerie sophistication in their planning, coordination, and execution, hinting at knowledge and intention far beyond what one might expect from a pre-Columbian desert society. The purpose of the Nazca Lines remains uncertain, and it is precisely this uncertainty that enchants and confounds. Some scholars suggest they were ceremonial, paths or markers for rituals, perhaps connected to water, fertility, or the desert gods. Others propose astronomical alignments connecting the lines and figures to solstices, equinoxes, or the movements of stars and planets. Still others suggest that the figures were meant to be seen by deities from above, visible not to humans on the ground but to eyes in the sky, a communication spanning the realms of earth and heaven. Imagine standing on the desert floor at dawn, the sun casting long shadows, the wind whispering across the rocks and sand. You trace the lines with your gaze, noticing the subtle grooves, the faint curves, the precise angles. Perhaps a Nazca priest walked these paths, performing ceremonies, invoking rains, or honoring celestial events. Perhaps the desert itself became a sacred space marked and transformed by human hands, a canvas of devotion and intention. There is also the question of time. The Nazca Lines were created between roughly 500 BCE and 500 CE, yet their endurance is remarkable. The desert's dryness has preserved them for centuries, protected from rain and erosion, allowing us to glimpse the same designs the original creators intended. It is a reminder that human intention, when combined with natural forces, can leave a mark across millennia, a dialogue between people, land, and time. Consider the scale again. Some of the animal figures are as long as several football fields. To conceive, plan, and execute such vast designs would require careful observation, planning, and cooperation among many people. It suggests a culture that valued communal effort, ritual practice, and perhaps a cosmic connection between humans and the world around them. Even the simplest straight lines, stretching for miles across the desert, require thought, precision, and patience. And then there are the mysteries that remain. Why these figures? Why these lines? How were they coordinated without modern surveying tools? The questions resist definitive answers, allowing the imagination to wander. Perhaps some patterns align with water sources, hidden springs, or underground rivers, essential to desert survival. Perhaps others were symbolic, representing deities, animals of spiritual significance, or stories passed down orally through generations. Perhaps some meanings are lost forever, secrets intentionally hidden in the desert sands. Visualize the lines under the shifting light of day. Morning brings shadows that make the grooves more visible. Midday flattens the surface, softening the contours. Evening casts a golden glow, highlighting curves and angles in subtle relief. Over centuries, people would have walked among these paths, lived beside them, and perhaps understood aspects of their meaning now lost to time. The desert, seemingly empty, is alive with the imprint of human intent, quiet yet resonant. The Nazca Lines also connect to other mysteries we have explored. Like Nabta Playa, they suggest an ancient fascination with the heavens. Like Baalbek or Pumapunku, they reveal the precision and ambition of a culture that could manipulate massive space with skill. And like the Copper Scroll or the Voynich manuscript, they invite wonder, speculation, and the recognition that much of human creativity and knowledge remains hidden, waiting for patient eyes and minds to uncover. There is a rhythm to imagining the creation of these lines. Day after day, people would have measured, walked, and cleared the desert floor, observing the stars at night to align their work, coordinating with others to maintain scale and proportion. It is labor, observation, ritual, and imagination intertwined, and while the original intent may remain elusive, the result is a landscape that continues to captivate, inspiring awe in those who behold it centuries later. At night, under a sky thick with stars, imagine looking down from a high hill or imagining a flight above the desert. The figures emerge slowly, a spider here, a condor there, lines stretching toward the horizon, their meaning silent but unmistakable. The desert becomes both gallery and canvas, a place where humans inscribe themselves into the land, leaving a trace that connects earth and sky, past and present. And so, as we leave the Nazca Desert in your mind, let the lines linger, a testament to patience, precision, imagination, and mystery. They are symbols of a culture that engaged deeply with its environment, with ritual, with astronomy, and with the enduring human impulse to leave a mark. They remind us that even in the most arid, inhospitable places, human creativity can flourish, leaving echoes that invite contemplation for millennia. From here, our wandering will carry us across oceans again, into the Pacific, to an island dotted with enormous statues, where the stones themselves seem to have a life of their own, and where the questions of movement, ritual, and meaning remain as enduring as the landscape itself. From the sun-baked deserts of Nazca, let your mind wander across continents to the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, to a place that reshapes our understanding of human history, Göbekli Tepe. Imagine a site so ancient it predates farming, settled villages, and even pottery. At around 12,000 years old, it is a reminder that human ambition, creativity, and spiritual curiosity existed long before the foundations of what we call civilization. Göbekli Tepe rises subtly from the landscape, its circular enclosures and massive stone pillars partially buried beneath millennia of earth. It is easy to overlook at first, blending into the contours of the hill, yet when uncovered, the site reveals an astonishing complexity. Towering stones, some weighing tens of tons, are arranged in circles and ovals, each one carefully placed, each one carved with reliefs of animals, snakes, foxes, boars, birds, scorpions, creatures familiar and symbolic, etched with skill and intention. Picture the people who built this site. They had no metal tools, no wheel, no domesticated beasts of burden, and yet they quarried, transported, and raised immense stones, carving intricate designs with remarkable precision. Perhaps they worked in groups, coordinating through observation and intuition, using simple tools yet profound ingenuity. Every circle, every pillar suggests planning, labor, and an understanding of structural balance, as if these early humans were architects, engineers, and spiritual guides, all at once. What is perhaps most remarkable is the purpose of Göbekli Tepe. It is not a settlement. There are no signs of houses or permanent dwellings. The site appears to be ceremonial, a place where people gathered periodically, perhaps to observe the heavens, perform rituals, or honor deities long forgotten. It suggests that the human impulse for religion and collective spiritual experience came before agriculture, before cities, before the systems we often think of as the foundation of civilization. Humans gathered first, and perhaps only later did they settle. Imagine standing at the center of one of the stone circles in your mind. The massive pillars rise around you, casting long shadows in the early morning sun. The carvings of animals seem almost alive, frozen in motion, their eyes following you silently. You can hear the faint echo of footsteps from thousands of years ago, the murmur of chants or conversation, the hum of activity as people brought offerings, performed dances, or simply stood in quiet awe beneath these stones. It is a place designed to inspire, to focus attention, and to create a sense of shared purpose. The carvings themselves are extraordinary. Each animal is detailed with attention to anatomy and expression, yet stylized in ways that suggest symbolic meaning. Snakes coil in graceful spirals, birds perch in poised stillness, predators are captured mid-stride. These images were not mere decoration, they carry meaning, intent, and perhaps messages we may never fully understand. Each relief is a whisper across time, a voice reaching to us from the dawn of organized human thought. And then there is the layout. The circles and ovals are arranged with subtle relationships, perhaps aligned to celestial events, cardinal points, or other natural markers. The placement is deliberate, evidence that these early humans observed the sky and landscape with precision. The site is a monument not just to human labor, but to human curiosity, intellect, and imagination. It suggests a culture capable of abstract thinking, symbolic representation, and long-term planning, all traits we often associate with later, more advanced societies. Imagine the construction process itself. Stones quarried from nearby, dragged with ropes, levers, and sheer determination, raised into place with careful coordination. The work would have required vision, leadership, and communal effort. Generations may have participated, adding, modifying, and maintaining the circles. Each stone lifted is a testament to endurance, ingenuity, and a collective sense of purpose. Even now, with modern equipment, lifting and carving these pillars would be a formidable challenge. Göbekli Tepe also reshapes our understanding of the timeline of human development. For centuries, scholars assumed that agriculture led to permanent settlements, which led to religion, art, and monumental architecture. Yet here, in southeastern Turkey, we see monumental ritual structures that predate farming. It suggests that perhaps the human drive for meaning, spirituality, and community inspired the very innovations that later enabled agriculture, cities, and civilizations. Walking in your imagination among the stone circles, you can sense the rhythm of human presence across millennia. Fires burned in the center of enclosures, food was shared, ceremonies performed, knowledge transmitted orally. People observed the stars, interpreted signs from nature, and inscribed meaning into stone. Each act was both ephemeral and eternal, a fleeting moment preserved through the weight and endurance of rock. And like other great mysteries we have encountered, Baalbek, Pumapunku, the Nazca Lines, Göbekli Tepe defies simple explanation. We can measure it, study it, theorize about it, yet the full story remains elusive. What drove these people to construct such massive, intricate monuments? How did they coordinate labor and resources without settled villages? What beliefs, rituals, or knowledge guided their hands? The questions linger unanswered, inviting quiet contemplation and the patient curiosity of those willing to wonder. As night falls in your imagination, picture the desert quiet, stars blazing overhead. The circles of Göbekli Tepe are silhouetted against the night sky, massive stones reaching upward, connecting earth and heavens. You can almost hear the whispers of ancient voices, faint chants, or the hum of ritual. It is a place of awe, of mystery, and of reflection, a reminder that human curiosity and ingenuity are timeless, stretching far beyond the boundaries we often imagine. And so as we leave Göbekli Tepe, let the sight linger in your mind. Monumental stone circles, carved animals, complex design, and a glimpse of a world where humans sought meaning, ritual, and connection long before the foundations of agriculture and cities. It is a reminder that some of our oldest mysteries are not hidden beneath the sea or the sands, but standing quietly on a hill, waiting for patient eyes and wandering minds to witness their silent power. From here, our journey will drift once more to islands scattered across the Pacific, where enormous stone figures stand frozen in time and questions of movement, ritual, and society echo through history. From the monumental stones of Göbekli Tepe, let your imagination drift eastward across oceans to the waters off the coast of Okinawa, Japan. Beneath the gentle sway of tides, where sunlight filters through blue-green waves, lies a mystery hidden from view for much of human history. The Yonaguni Monument, a formation that emerges from the depths like a city frozen in stone. It is a place that both fascinates and perplexes, inviting contemplation of ancient skill, time, and the ocean's quiet patience. The Yonaguni Monument is a series of massive underwater terraces, steps, and plateaus carved, or perhaps shaped, into sandstone. From above the water, it is invisible, and only by diving do its monumental forms become apparent. Sharp angles, long straight edges, terraces that suggest planning, and structures that seem architectural. Some terraces rise to more than 20 meters below the surface, with flat platforms and right-angled formations hinting at construction rather than natural erosion. Imagine the first diver descending into this submerged world. Sunlight penetrates the water in shifting beams, illuminating horizontal planes and vertical edges. Rocks that seem impossibly aligned appear in series, as though placed with intention. Carvings, grooves, and possible steps suggest human effort, or at least some form of deliberate shaping. The mind wonders, could these stones be remnants of a civilization long swallowed by the sea? Could they be evidence of a people whose memory has vanished beneath millennia of water and sediment? The debate over Yonaguni's origins is ongoing. Some scholars argue that natural geological processes, tectonic shifts, erosion, sedimentation, can produce straight lines, and flat terraces explaining the monument as an extraordinary accident of nature. Others see evidence of human craftsmanship, angles too precise, terraces too uniform, and subtle carvings hinting at steps, platforms, and even roads. The possibility that Yonaguni represents a submerged city, perhaps predating all known Japanese civilizations, sparks imagination and careful speculation. Consider the implications. If humans did carve these structures, they would have had the knowledge, tools, and organization to manipulate massive stone in ways that predate recorded Japanese history. They would have lived at a time when sea levels were lower, landscapes now submerged were dry land, and coastal settlements thrived where today the ocean stretches. We can imagine people walking along terraces that are now underwater, stepping carefully across platforms that followed a purpose lost to memory, performing tasks, rituals, or daily life on a land that now rests beneath the waves. Picture the monument from below, where divers move slowly, bubbles rising toward the surface, light refracting through the water in dancing patterns. The edges of terraces are sharp, almost unnatural. The corners of stone rise in steps or slopes that suggest intention. Some formations appear to resemble roads or walls, long stretches that could have guided movement or defined space. The water muffles sound, yet the monument speaks in silence, its language of stone, inviting wonder, speculation, and the quiet thrill of discovery. If the Yonaguni monument is man-made, its creation would have required immense effort and organization. Imagine prehistoric humans working with stone without the advantage of metal tools or modern cranes, shaping terraces, carving platforms, and perhaps aligning structures for ceremonial or practical purposes. The labor, planning, and vision involved would rival any known early civilization, hinting at capabilities and knowledge that challenge conventional timelines. And yet the monument's submersion adds an additional layer of mystery. Rising seas slowly engulfed the landscape, erasing villages, roads, and any trace of human presence above water. Layers of sediment now cover some formations, obscuring their original shapes, while others remain eerily clear in the currents. The ocean has preserved as much as it has hidden, leaving only tantalizing glimpses of what might have existed. Each dive becomes a meditation on impermanence, the shifting boundaries between land and sea, memory and loss. The formations themselves suggest more than just functional structures. Some terraces appear ceremonial, broad platforms that could have hosted gatherings. Others resemble steps or ramps connecting one level to another. Grooves and carvings hint at symbolic meaning, possible pathways for movement, or markers of significance. Whether accidental or deliberate, the geometric regularity captures the imagination, drawing parallels to other ancient constructions around the world, from Baalbek to Pumapunku, from Nazca Lines to Göbekli Tepe. Imagine the people who might have walked these terraces, unaware that centuries later their work would lie beneath the sea. Daily life might have intertwined with ritual, navigation, and observation of the natural world. Perhaps platforms aligned with the sun, the moon, or distant landmarks. Perhaps terraces were spaces for assembly, commerce, or spiritual practice. Each stone, each angle, each step would have been shaped by intent, a dialogue between humans and their environment. Even if natural processes formed Yonaguni, the monument still fascinates. Nature's hand, carving terraces with geometric precision, reminds us that landscapes themselves can produce patterns that inspire awe and speculation. Wind, water, and tectonics interact over millennia to create forms that echo human design, blurring the boundary between what is natural and what is crafted. It is a quiet lesson in humility. Even the earth can leave mysteries that challenge perception and imagination. As night settles in your mind, imagine hovering above the site in a small diving bell, or floating with the currents as the sun filters down in fractured rays. The terraces stretch into the blue, edges softened by water, platforms revealed in shifting light. Silence dominates, broken only by the soft rush of water. The Yonaguni monument is still, yet alive with possibility, an echo of humans long vanished, a whisper of geological artistry, a place that holds secrets we may never fully grasp. Yonaguni connects with the broader tapestry of ancient mysteries we have explored. Like Baalbek or Pumapunku, it challenges understanding of human capability. Like Nazca Lines or the Nazca Lines, it hints at the importance of landscape, observation, and possibly ritual. And like the Library of Alexandria or the Voynich manuscript, it reminds us that much knowledge may vanish before we can record or interpret it. Each mystery leaves a trace, inviting patient contemplation and wonder. And so, as we leave the waters off Okinawa in your imagination, let the Yonaguni monument linger, terraces, platforms, submerged streets, and silent whispers of a possible civilization lost to the ocean. Whether crafted by human hands or shaped by nature, it is a place that challenges perception, encourages reflection, and evokes the persistent human curiosity that seeks understanding across time and tide. From here, our journey will drift once more to the islands of the Pacific, where stone giants stand frozen in ritual and mystery, inviting us to consider movement, society, and purpose in ways as enigmatic as the sea itself. But for now, let Yonaguni rest in your imagination, a submerged landscape of wonder, patience, and questions that ripple through the waters of time. From the submerged terraces off Okinawa, let your mind drift back across continents, back to the sun-baked sands of Egypt's Giza Plateau. There, partially shadowed by the looming pyramids, sits a figure both familiar and mysterious, the Great Sphinx. Its leonine body sprawls across the desert, a sentinel watching over the plain, yet beneath its calm, immovable form lies a mystery that continues to stir debates among historians, geologists, and archaeologists alike. The Sphinx is colossal. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, its body stretches over 70 meters in length, its head rising more than 20 meters above the sand. On clear days, the light catches its features, highlighting the angular jaw, the stoic expression, and the weathered nose. Yet as we gaze upon it, questions arise that challenge conventional timelines. Erosion patterns on its body suggest that water, not wind, may have shaped much of the stone, implying exposure to rain on a scale unseen in Egypt for millennia. If true, the Sphinx may predate the dynastic periods, perhaps existing long before the pharaohs who are usually credited with its construction. Imagine the desert in ancient times, centuries before the known pyramids, when rainfall was heavier and the land was fertile. Here, an unknown culture may have walked, carving a figure of extraordinary size and significance. Who were they? What was their purpose? Perhaps they were observing the skies, studying the stars as Nabta-Playa's people had done, or marking seasons with monumental stone. Perhaps they were guardians, ritual symbols, or representations of deities long forgotten. Each erosion groove, each weathered surface, is a whisper from that distant past, a message we strain to understand. The face of the Sphinx itself carries further mysteries. Scholars note that it appears recarved, its proportions and features adjusted over time. The original visage, if it existed, may have looked different, reflecting the aesthetic or symbolic priorities of an earlier era. One can almost picture teams of sculptors chiseling, refining, reshaping the limestone over generations, each adding their interpretation, each leaving subtle marks of their own time. The Sphinx is thus a palimpsest, a monument layered with history, style, and human intention. Consider the skill required to create such a figure. Even with modern tools, carving limestone on this scale is no small feat. Yet here, in a time without metal chisels, cranes, or surveying equipment, hands shaped and guided the stone with precision, vision, and patience. The proportions are harmonious, the posture natural, the gaze seemingly aware, even lifelike. It is not merely a sculpture, it is a statement of understanding, labor, and perhaps devotion, revealing a culture capable of grand ambition and deep observation. Erosion itself tells a story. Wind, sand, and water have sculpted the Sphinx over millennia, yet the pattern of weathering, particularly on the body, suggests an age far older than traditionally thought. Rainfall erosion, rather than sand abrasion, dominates the surface, hinting at a time when Egypt's climate was dramatically different. Imagine heavy rains cascading across the plateau, pooling around the monument, water carving grooves and channels that persist to this day. The Sphinx becomes both a monument and a geological record, bridging human history and Earth's ancient environment. And yet, despite centuries of study, many questions remain unanswered. If the Sphinx is older than dynastic Egypt, what culture carved it? What knowledge did they possess? Were they connected to the later Egyptians, or were they a vanished people whose legacy endures only in stone? The absence of written records from this earlier period leaves us with only the physical monument, a silent sentinel offering glimpses into a past we can scarcely reconstruct. The Sphinx also evokes contemplation of time and impermanence. Its nose is gone, features worn, yet the figure endures, staring eternally across the desert. It is a reminder that stone, though durable, is not invincible, that civilizations rise and fall, and that what survives may only hint at the complexity and richness of the past. Each crack, each fissure, each eroded surface is a narrative of centuries, of storms, sand, human hands, and the quiet persistence of the earth. Picture yourself at sunrise, standing before the Sphinx, the desert glowing gold. The pyramids rise in the distance, but all attention is drawn to the colossal figure, its eyes empty yet profoundly expressive. The wind shifts, carrying sand across the plain, and for a moment it feels as though the Sphinx could speak, sharing secrets from ages long before history began to be written. You feel the weight of millennia pressing softly, gently, like a reminder of the vastness of time and the small yet enduring presence of humanity within it. The mystery of the Sphinx is not just its age or origin, but the questions it provokes about human ambition and belief. Who decides what is monumental? How do people leave lasting marks on the world? What compels societies to carve, build, and inscribe meaning into stone? The Sphinx, in all its enigmatic stillness, encourages reflection on these very questions, connecting the observer to a continuum of human curiosity that stretches back far beyond recorded history. And so, as we leave the sands of Giza, let the Sphinx linger in your mind, monumental, weathered, and mysterious, standing as both guardian and enigma. Its silent gaze reaches across millennia, hinting at knowledge lost, cultures vanished, and the enduring human desire to shape the world in ways that outlast individual lifetimes. It is a monument not only of stone, but of imagination, ambition, and the quiet persistence of wonder. From here, our journey will drift once more into the oceans, deserts, and forests of ancient civilizations, where lost cities, submerged ruins, and enigmatic artifacts continue to challenge our understanding, reminding us that the world is full of questions waiting to be explored. From the monumental sands of Giza, let your imagination drift across oceans, mountains, and centuries to objects small yet baffling, scattered across the earth, each one hinting at secrets that resist explanation. These are the out-of-place artifacts, curiosities that defy timelines, challenge assumptions, and whisper of knowledge we may have lost, civilizations that left traces we struggle to interpret. Consider ancient maps drawn with remarkable precision, depicting coastlines as they exist today, yet in eras long before such accuracy was thought possible. Some of the most extraordinary examples show Antarctica without ice, a continent that would not be visible in such form until modern exploration revealed it beneath layers of ice. How did mapmakers from centuries ago, lacking satellites or global surveys, depict these frozen lands as they truly were? Did their sources come from older civilizations, lost to history, whose knowledge exceeded what we assume possible? And then there are the tiny figurines, clay and stone, shaped with unusual forms. Among them, some resemble modern airplanes, gliders, or other flying devices. These artifacts date to periods when human flight was entirely unimaginable. Were these the products of imagination and artistic abstraction, or could they hint at experimentation with flight long before the Wright brothers? Small, enigmatic, and often overlooked, these objects seem to bridge the known and the unknown, daring us to question what humans were capable of in ages long past. The London hammer, found embedded in solid rock in Texas, is another curious specimen. Encased in stone that geologists estimate to be hundreds of thousands of years old, the hammer's presence in such rock challenges timelines of tool-making and metallurgy. Was it truly ancient, or does it represent some anomaly of preservation? The object, simple in design, raises profound questions. How could such a tool exist in geological formations that predate human civilization as we understand it? Its quiet defiance of expectation invites speculation and wonder. Small objects appear elsewhere as well: carved stones, tiny metallic devices, intricate mechanisms, and simple figurines, all from periods or cultures that supposedly lack the technology to create them. Each is a puzzle piece that refuses to fit neatly into the conventional historical narrative. Perhaps they were ceremonial, symbolic, or misunderstood, Perhaps they are remnants of forgotten knowledge or civilizations whose existence has been erased by time. The very strangeness of these objects forces the mind to pause, to reconsider assumptions about the linear progression of human innovation. Imagine holding one of these artifacts in your hands. Its weight, texture, and form are tangible, yet its origin remains elusive. The mind wonders, who made this? How did they conceive it, shape it, and leave it behind? Were they experimenting, recording knowledge, or merely creating art in a form whose meaning is now opaque? The small size of the objects contrasts with the enormity of the questions they provoke. In their silence, they speak louder than any text, challenging our understanding of history with quiet insistence. Ancient maps, too, invite meditation. Drawn on parchment, stone, or clay, they often reveal coastlines, rivers, and mountain ranges with astonishing fidelity. Some maps, created before known global exploration, depict islands, continents, or features that were supposedly unknown. Observing them, one can almost feel the hands of long-dead cartographers tracing coastlines, recording observations, and transferring knowledge that seems impossibly advanced for their time. The maps suggest communication, exploration, and record-keeping that we may only partially understand. Then consider the airplane-like figurines in more detail. Small, carved objects, often abstract in style, yet unmistakably aerodynamic in shape. Some show what appears to be wings, tail fins, and fuselage-like forms. Could these be artistic representations of mythic creatures, or are they scaled models of machines imagined, or even constructed, long before mechanical flight became a reality? The ambiguity is part of their allure. They defy expectation, forcing us to balance skepticism with curiosity, leaving us in that rare place of wonder where the past feels alive and unpredictable. The London hammer and similar anomalies add another layer of intrigue. Embedded in stone, resistant to attempts at simple explanation, they occupy the space between artifact and impossibility. Perhaps the rock encased the hammer unusually quickly, or perhaps dating methods are misapplied. But no matter the explanation, the hammer persists as a challenge to the story of human progress. It is a reminder that objects themselves sometimes speak louder than written records or monuments. Even the smallest tools can provoke the greatest mysteries. Each out-of-place artifact, each map, each figurine is a bridge across time. They invite contemplation not only of human ingenuity but of human imagination. Were these objects evidence of cultures whose accomplishments we have lost? Were they experiments, dreams, or symbolic representations of concepts we may never fully understand? Or were they coincidences, misinterpretations, natural anomalies mistaken for evidence of impossible skill? The uncertainty itself is part of their power. They demand patience, reflection, and the quiet surrender of certainty. Imagine assembling these artifacts in your mind, a scattered collection spanning continents and millennia, maps of lands unseen, figurines of impossible machines, tools encased in stone, mysterious mechanisms whose purpose is obscure. Each is a fragment of a broader story, one that refuses to be fully reconstructed, and yet together they hint at something profound, that the past may have been far more inventive, more imaginative, and more technologically capable than we usually assume. As night deepens in your mind, envision a slow walk through a dimly lit room filled with these objects. The maps hang on walls, the figurines rest in glass cases, the tools lie on stone pedestals. The air is quiet, save for the faint hum of thought and imagination. You can almost hear the whispers of their creators, distant voices asking the same questions we ask today. What can we do? What can we imagine? How can we shape the world? These are questions that transcend time, connecting past and present in a silent dialogue of curiosity. Out-of-place artifacts remind us that history is not always neat, linear, or complete. They whisper of lost knowledge, vanished civilizations, and human curiosity reaching far beyond what we assume possible. They are small, quiet markers of wonder scattered across the world, inviting us to look closer, think deeper, and embrace the ambiguity of what is known and unknown. And so as we leave these enigmatic objects in your imagination, let them linger. Maps, figurines, tools, and tiny mechanisms, each a question waiting for answers that may never come. They remind us that history is not only what we can read or measure, but what we can sense, imagine, and wonder at. A continuum of human ingenuity, imagination, and mystery stretching back across time. From here, our journey will return to one final reflection, drawing together the threads of our wanderings through ancient mysteries, monumental structures, and enigmatic artifacts, offering a quiet meditation on the enduring unknown. From the depths of the oceans to the sun-baked deserts, from monumental stones to small, curious objects, we have wandered tonight through mysteries that span the globe and stretch across millennia. And now, as our journey draws to a close, it is time to pause and reflect on what these mysteries mean, not as puzzles to be solved quickly, but as invitations to wonder, patience, and quiet contemplation. Some questions may never be answered, perhaps they are not meant to be. The massive blocks of Baalbek, the terraces of Yonaguni, the circles of Göbekli Tepe, and the colossal figures of Easter Island all stand as reminders that human creativity and ambition have existed far longer and in ways far stranger than we often assume. Some builders, some thinkers, some visionaries have left traces that defy the boundaries of modern understanding, and yet their works endure, silent witnesses to ingenuity and determination that transcend time. Imagine the deserts where lost cities sleep beneath sands, or the ocean floors where submerged civilizations rest under tides and currents. Every coastline, every riverbed, every stretch of wilderness holds the potential for discoveries that could rewrite our understanding of who we are and where we come from. Doggerland, drowned by rising seas, whispers of a human world vanished beneath the waves. Yonaguni rises just below the surface, enigmatic and silent. We can dive, we can explore, but we cannot reach fully into the depths of what once existed. And that is both humbling and awe-inspiring. As we reflect on the smaller artifacts, maps, figurines, and tools that seem impossibly advanced for their eras, we are reminded that human imagination has always been audacious. Perhaps our ancestors dreamed of flight, of distant lands, of knowledge and technology we take for granted today. Perhaps some of these dreams were realized, only to be lost over time, leaving behind traces that seem inexplicable to us now. In their hands, the world was malleable, filled with possibility, and their curiosity echoes faintly across centuries, urging us to imagine, to question, and to explore. There is a humbling lesson in this. For every mystery we study, for every artifact we catalogue or monument we measure, we are reminded that we are not the first advanced dreamers. Humanity has been weaving imagination, observation, and skill for tens of thousands of years. Societies rose and fell, and yet the impulse to create, to understand, and to leave a mark has persisted. Sometimes these marks are obvious, like the pyramids or the Sphinx. Sometimes they are subtle, like the grooves of the Nazca Lines or the contours of a submerged terrace. And sometimes they are small objects, enigmatic, delicate, and whispering of lives we cannot fully reconstruct. History is humbling in this way. It reminds us that knowledge is not a straight line, that innovation does not always follow the patterns we expect. It is a vast, winding river, sometimes hidden beneath layers of time, erosion, and forgotten memory. And it teaches patience, the patient observer, the quiet dreamer, the one who listens carefully to the whispers of stone, water, and artifact, gains a deeper sense of continuity, of belonging, and of wonder. Think now of the great monuments we have wandered through tonight. The trilithons of Baalbek, impossibly heavy and immovable to modern eyes. The pyramids of Giza, aligned with stars, built with tools far simpler than the perfection they achieved. Puma Punku, with stones cut as though by machines. The Moai of Easter Island, standing silently over their island. Each is a testament to ambition, precision, and belief. Yet in every one, a question lingers. How? How did these people achieve what they did? And what else, hidden beneath sand, stone, or sea, remains waiting for patient eyes? And beneath the waves, or in the whispering winds across deserts, there are other mysteries, perhaps never to be solved. Doggerland, submerged beneath the North Sea, may never fully reveal its streets, homes, and lives. Yonaguni remains partially hidden, its terraces shaped by water and time. The Nazca Lines stretch across the plains, visible primarily from the air, hinting at rituals, celestial observations, or messages now obscured. Even the Library of Alexandria, with scrolls destroyed and knowledge vanished, reminds us that what is lost may never be recovered, yet still shapes the present in subtle, unseen ways. Consider the strange artifacts we have imagined tonight. Maps depicting ice-free continents, tiny figures resembling flying machines, tools encased in stone that should not exist. Each one challenges assumptions, each one demands humility. They are reminders that human history is not simple, and that the universe often gives us only glimpses of what was, what could have been, and what we may never understand. In the quiet, we can let these enigmas be. Questions without answers, invitations to wonder without expectation. And as you settle further into your chair, bed, or favorite corner, allow the rhythm of the night to draw you inward. Feel the slow, steady pull of breath, the gentle hum of your surroundings, the sense that you are part of a continuum stretching back across millennia. The mysteries we have explored tonight, monuments, artifacts, submerged cities, enigmatic carvings, are more than puzzles. They are reminders that curiosity, imagination, and wonder are timeless. They are threads connecting us to people who lived thousands of years ago, people who dreamed, built, and imagined worlds we may never fully comprehend. Let your mind wander through deserts, oceans, and ancient landscapes, tracing terraces, carving lines, and stepping softly among stones. Allow the faces of the Sphinx, the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, and the massive heads of the Moai to settle in your imagination. Each is a marker of human ambition and the quiet persistence of mystery, a testament to the fact that we have always reached beyond the immediate, the practical, and the known. And now, as your thoughts drift along these currents of history, let them ease into stillness. Imagine the monuments resting beneath stars, beneath waves, beneath centuries of wind and rain. Imagine the small artifacts, maps, and figurines lying in quiet corners, waiting to be seen. Imagine knowledge lost and regained, questions lingering in silence, and the gentle hum of human curiosity continuing quietly, patiently, through time. And as you drift off tonight, remember, history is not a closed book, but one still being written. Its pages are made not only of the monuments, tools, and maps we study, but of the imagination and wonder of those who came before us, and those who come after. In sleep, we participate in this continuum, resting, dreaming, and absorbing the stories, echoes, and mysteries of a world far older, stranger, and more magnificent than we often realize. Let your eyes close gently. Let the stories of Baalbek, Giza, Puma Punku, Easter Island, Doggerland, Göbekli Tepe, Yonaguni, and countless other mysteries linger softly in your mind. The world is vast, filled with questions, and it is patient. Sleep, too, is patient, and as you drift, let curiosity and wonder mingle with rest, allowing the mysteries of the past to lull you into the quiet, timeless rhythm of the night. Sleep now, carrying with you the faint hum of stone, sea and sky, the enduring whispers of civilizations, dreams and enigmas that stretch far beyond memory, beyond record and into the vast continuum of time itself.